They do this on purpose, man. I know people don't believe that, but they do. Been gone all week. Internet works fine. Bam. I get on there one time. It's getting old, man. This is getting old. They do this crap on purpose. But anyway, whatever. It is what it is. If you fuss about it, there ain't nothing you can do about it. So you just learn not to do anything. I used to yell and cuss and punch air, but it's just me here. No one cares. No one sees. So it is what it is. So we'll go live again, and maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. If it doesn't, don't worry. I see the messages. You don't have to tell me that it's out. I know. I appreciate it, but I already know. I see it when it goes out. I can see the red dot, the red ring of death over there. They probably can't handle it because, you know, I don't have a filter and no one can cancel me but you, the people. So, but it feels that way because so many people don't share like they're supposed to, which is the whole point of this, again, is that, you know, you allow your emotions to get the way they get. So I'm going to go through my spiel again because when I upload this later, the people need to know that the internet went out. But, you know, once again, people allow other people who don't know shit from Shinola control your emotions. And this guy right here, and this dash is every consolation that you could possibly have and hold. And there are just a few of us who know what this dash means. There's only one that I know of that can rattle it off the way he rattles. I think that would be me. They call me Rattle Trap for a reason. God gave me the ability to hold all this information in my head and do it in an hour if we want it in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever detail we want to go into. You don't need multiple sources. You don't need multiple people. You don't need multiple platforms. You don't need that. And I'll never forget when I first went viral, and I don't remember the guy's name, but there was a guy that was in the comment box on my Facebook. I'll never forget it. He said, Derek, you don't need any other platform. You don't need to be a guest on there. You don't need to be any kind of host. You don't need it. You have the full blueprint. Now, I did go on people's shows. I did. I started going on different shows, etc., because my heart's in the right place. My motives are in the right place. I'm getting to serve beyond my service. That's it. I've gone through everything that President Trump's gone through in a different manner. These people have tried to spread rumors. They tried to start stuff in the drama world. I've been called everything you can be called. And here I am to this day. Because here's why. God knows at the end of the day, and I'm not a preacher, but God knows whose heart's in the right place and who's doing this for the right reasons. When I went viral August 24, 2022 on Facebook, I got mad. There was a liberal who got in the comment box at that time, because this was my personal Facebook. You got to remember, this wasn't a page. It was a personal Facebook page. It wasn't a business page. And there was a liberal, and when I saw that, that's when I went off the rails, son, and I gave them hell. But I truly, in my heart, cannot fathom how we got to such a place where people who claim to support the president, especially this guy, this president, claim to support him and also claim to support the military, but absolutely will not listen to hardcore military facts, military law, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military traditions, and how they pair with what he put into place and what he invoked. I mean, this ain't the first rodeo. I mean, I wrote the documents.info. I wrote those from 2017 to 2021, and then I went back around in 2021 and tried to put them in a chronological order. I already had that long before I went viral. And I never understood why God took me out of the military the way he did. And I'll get to tell that story someday soon, when it matters and when I can talk about myself. But this ain't about me. It's about all of us. And this man was called at an appointed time in history. He was called to do what he's doing with that dash. And that dash has a blueprint. If it didn't, once again, this would not be a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And it's also a #1 bestseller self-published. Now, I don't know if the New York Times will ever recognize it if we hit 100,000 sales. I don't know. All you got to have is the barcodes and the set proof of sales, and we got that. But it don't matter. This book, what I did was took all the laws and orders that make up that dash right there at the appointed time, and I put them in this book where you don't have to get on Google and look up every single thing. Now, you should want to, and if you can't afford a book, that's fine. What you should do in my videos is do what a lady was doing in South Dakota. A lady at one of the events, she had a notepad, and she was writing all this down as I went through. That's what you're supposed to do. And if you want to make a bet with me, fine, do that. Go, I don't believe this guy. Well, then go look it all up. And when you find that it's there, then you're in trouble. Because then you have to acknowledge it's there and it's correct. And this dash wouldn't be here if all this stuff was invoked, or wasn't invoked, actually. It wouldn't be there. So that dash and that number 47 already is proof that it's there. Because this man didn't live 78 years to forget the difference in a comma, a dash, and a little and symbol. That dash means continuous. It means through. 45, 46, and 47. And this ball cap came out April 2023. Which means President Trump was claiming number 47 a year and 7 months before the actual day that Americans think decides the fate of number 47. And number 47 lasts to when? January the 20th, 2028. So this man's already claiming number 45, 46, and 47, number 47, a year and 7 months before the date that would decide that. And I'm the crazy one. But it baffles me that so many people will watch all the propaganda. There are so many on Instagram over here. I mean, it's video after video after video. And it's all to look and see. These people, oh, I got 2,000 likes on there. Oh, let's see who they are. We live in such a selfish nation where people just want clicks and likes, and they want to feel loved, and they want to feel a part of something. What about these people? What about the ones that raised their right hand that took the fall in this nation who can't speak anymore? What about them? Every single veteran swore in. We all swore in under the same Title 10. They could be 99 years old, 105 years old, whatever the oldest person living that's a veteran. The oldest person living that's a veteran and the youngest person, we all swore in under the same Title 10. And this man right here talks about fake news all the time. It don't have to be CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ABC, and all them to be fake news. There's a lot of fake news of people that I know personally. And I've texted them and I said, I don't understand why you keep sharing all this propaganda. You have a platform. It don't matter how crazy you look to all these people who don't know. They don't know because they don't know. And they don't know because you're not delivering it to them. But see, a lot of these people also that have these platforms, guess what? They don't want to put credit where it's due. So they either don't share it because they don't want to put credit where it's due and look like they didn't know, because they don't. And then you got the ones who regurgitate out there who never knew to begin with, but because they may have a softer delivery, or they may be better looking, or they talk like this, people gravitate over there and their motives ain't correct either just because they can regurgitate it. That's also dangerous, because if those people get offered a position just because they regurgitate stuff and they don't know how to think like this on the front like I do, and I'm not the only one, I know only a few, there ain't many, but I know a few who know this on the front, who know this over here. That's also dangerous. And those people don't want to give credit where it's due either. And I know a lot of them as well. There's one platform out there that have hundreds of thousands of followers. Hundreds of thousands. Didn't know anything about the military occupation, didn't know anything about continuity operations, didn't know anything about presidential emergency action documents, didn't know anything about that until I went on their show as a favor of a mutual friend. And then when they learned that, they took all that, added it to theirs. Guess what happened? They blocked and deleted our mutual friend and never gave credit where it's due for that one little podcast. That's the swamp mentality. And when President Trump talks about fake news and he talks about the swamp, this whole operation and what that dash stands for is to drain that mentality, to get that out. And a lot of you are supporting that still with all the propaganda, all the people who just push because all their softer delivery or all their this and all their that, when this whole operation was to get us out of people sitting on their phones all day long and just going, oh, yeah, that fits my belief. That's my belief system. Okay, I'm going to remember that. Oh, it's to break that. Our nation was not supposed to look like this. Period. So you're failing the test if you keep going to all these propaganda pushers and drama and surface level stuff. You're failing the test. And it's not that it's a test. It's really not a test. You're failing just period. You're failing the mission. And how we got to a place in society where people don't want to listen to a veteran who just has a good heart and is showing you the laws and the orders that are currently invoked. So a lot of you are learning what? You're learning that not everybody in the military knew what's going on either, which is unfortunate. And there's a lot of good people out there that served in the military, but they know nothing about laws and orders of which they served under. And the only thing that matters is what's in place, who's in charge, and what's in place. That's the only thing that matters. That's it. Is who's in charge and what's in place. Who's in charge and what's in place. That's the only thing that matters. Hang tight real quick. There we go. So I'm going to get back to my notes really quick. The dash, right? It's all about the dash. That's the only thing you need to know. You don't need multiple resources in your life. You don't need multiple sources in your life. You don't need multiple information. You don't need multiple people. You don't need multiple podcasters. You don't need that. This man was sent by God. This is a spiritual battle first. Information battle. This war was not going to be the kind of war that you thought it was with boots on the ground. It's just not. It wasn't needed, not necessary. So you go to old school tactics that work. They knew the American public wouldn't know, because 68% of America can't even name the three branches of government. So they knew the average people would not know. They also knew the average person wouldn't believe someone like me, because you don't know anything to do with legislation, anything to do with the three branches of government and how they function and operate. They knew that. And there's groups out there that are claimed to be veterans that are for Kamala. Boy, how sad is it? How sad is it that there are people out there that think Joe Biden is real and Kamala's real? But even worse, when you're a United States veteran and you don't even know that these people that you claim to be supporting ain't even real. I mean, that's as sad as it can get. And what's even worse, and I say this as a veteran, veterans, we have a way to talk to each other. It's a different way than most people can imagine. But some of you get upset, and that's fine, because you weren't in, you don't get it. So maybe you should just butt out for a moment. But veterans out there, if you do not like this man, and you don't know what that dash stands for, it's only going to make your service look worse. Because a lot of your family members do know what's going on. And the more they know what's going on, and the more you don't, it's only going to reflect on you. And you may be a good person. You may have been a good soldier. You may have a good heart to this day. Your resume in service may be impeccable. But if you don't know, this dash is everything that we served under and everything we represent. All of that can go away because the people who do know that, especially your family members, they're going to look at you differently and think, now why didn't they know? They are good person, good heart, good soldier, perfect resume, maybe your medals, maybe you have stuff all in your room like your cave or man cave or whatever. They're going to go, how did you not know? And here is the most important time in history for you to shine if you are highly decorated. If you did do 20, 25, 30 years. The more you did, the more you could shine right now if you knew what this dash represents. So, one, I got 3 bullet points here. 1, no, it's not secretive. I hear people all the time, well, is this secret stuff you're talking about? No, it's all public information. It's all public. The only thing I use are .gov and .mil, official government and official military sites. I don't give you dates. I don't make predictions. I don't do any of that. And podcasters will do that. What do you think about this? And what about... And I'm like, well, I don't like doing that because this ain't what this whole mission is about. The more people do that to people, the more that these people claim to be experts. I'm not an expert. I just read stuff that most people don't want to read. And I get tabbed to be an expert, and then I get tabbed to being this whatever it is, genius. I'm not. I can retain a lot, but I'm not. I just read what people don't want to read. But I read the stuff that matters. Our nation functions with legislation. Have the laws been enforced all these years? No. But that changed November the 8th, 2016. That was a line drawn in the sand. There was a definitive line drawn in the sand when the new sheriff came to town. All right? Everything flipped. That's why it matters that you know who's in control, what they're in charge of. That's the only thing that matters. So it's not secretive, it's all public information. But like I said, knowledge is not power. It's the application of knowledge that's power. So I'm not going to refrain from saying everything that I know due to your lack of intelligence. I believe everybody can be taught. But it's not my role and duty either to coerce you, persuade you, or convince you. My role and duty, I feel like God put me here to serve beyond my service, is to show you, here's the knowledge, you got to make it applicable. And if it comes harder, work harder. But running over to people who only try to fit into your belief is what's going to lead you down the wrong path. Because 99.9% of these people have no clue what's going on. And I say people, I'm talking about podcasters, have no clue what's going on. And if you knew some of the stuff that I actually knew, I mean, I've tied a lot of these people in together. They were all trying to sabotage me for bad reasons, all for their own gain and lust of money. I've tied a lot of people in. Ooh, have I tied some people in. But see, God knows. God knows. He does know. Like I said, I'm not a preacher, but God knows the heart. God knows the motives. And God will protect everybody that calls on His name and has followed Him for the right reasons. And doing things with the right motives, with the right... Once again, this does help us. All this helps us. And I really think that the powers that be thought more Americans would be more awake than what they are. I can't imagine being a general looking out and going, my God, at the people and what they follow. The atrocity, it's a tragic for every veteran that's laying in a memorial grave somewhere that we are at October the 20th, 2024, and we still have so many people who fall for the slightest, smallest little thing of propaganda and nonsense and garbage. It's an atrocity. And all you're doing is this man and his family and that dash and injustice. And that dash represents the military. I don't care if there are people in the service that don't know what's going on right now. They'll find out. It represents something way bigger than a podcaster who's trying to make a buck. And I see my pages once again. I see how many followers I have on all the platforms. TikTok got deleted again, by the way. All right. But still, that's what they do. And the amount of followers that I have and the amount of shares that are out there, when it's free information, you don't pay for a subscription, nothing. And the ones that have the subscriptions, I'm like, these people are paying for mega subscriptions, and these people are just pushing propaganda. It shows how controllable people are. And it's always the ones with a good heart and the good motives that nobody listens to. Now, I'm not talking about you that follow. You are somebody. But I'm talking about when you do the math here, when you look at the math, people are still going to Fox News. People are going over to the blue checks that have 2 and 3 million just because he had 2 or 3. That's what gets people in trouble. I mean, it's all day, every day. And that's my point, too. There are layers of podcasters claiming to be President Trump supporters, but they're nothing but drama, surface level, and propaganda pushers. And they're the same as fake news. When President Trump says that's fake news and that's fake news, these people are fake news. And those who continue to still get on Instagram daily and post just for 2,000 and 3,000 likes or 500 likes, whatever they're getting, and they're not seeking to learn this dash, man. And President Trump talks about Section 230 all the time. We need a digital Bill of Rights and to amend Section 230, which means we have too many Indians out there trying to be, oh, I'm somebody. Yeah. See, a lot of these people, a lot of these guys are older males, and they just they want females. All right, so that's one thing. And then, two, they want to act like there's somebody who is an agent, or they're trying to make a case to be asked to be one of those. It's sad, man. I swear. It's frustrating. It really is. It's frustrating to be at this point and to know that you know the very thing that could set all of you free, and you just keep falling for it. You just keep falling. I see it in the inboxes. I read the messages. I mean, people just, You come to my page and then you run to all these propaganda pushers. You don't need anything but that right there. That's it. You don't need anything in your life. A lot of you could free up your lives and your day so much. A lot of you are married. A lot of you have kids. A lot of you have grandkids. A lot of you have hobbies that you love. You can free up your day so much if you just focus on what matters. Then my number 3 point is that you get people who get mad and then think that what I say is a discredit to him, and it's not. And people who think that, they're too dumb to pour piss out of a number 5 wash tub. Anybody who thinks like that, they can't take a giant wash tub and pour pee out of it correctly. So there's a few different people out there still that if all 3 of those different kinds of people would get with the program in the right way, that's the program, we would be a lot more closer to what this whole operation is about than what it looks like right now. Because what it looks like right now is And what I'm trying to do is make sure that all these veterans that will take the fall, well, all these active duty, I'm making sure, I don't care if they don't know what's going on. We have to honor all the men and women who are serving right now in the greatest operation known to man. So if you claim to support the military, the armed forces, especially the National Guard and what they're doing right now, if you claim to support the armed forces, you can't do it without this dash, because that's what that dash represents right now at this time in history. Everything I talk about are all laws and orders currently in place and in vote. Everything had to be done lawfully. The first moment you don't do something lawful, all the liberals in this nation who don't know jack doo-doo about the Constitution they claim to support, the military they claim to support, which they can't, I don't know how you can, but all these liberals, the first time something wasn't done lawfully, guess what would happen? One liberal now will outwork 100 patriots. Now, it may not be work, but it may be just blah, 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 blah. One liberal. Because most patriots are sheep. They're just following. Versus every patriot having a lion mentality and going, you know what, it may be tough, but I'm going to seek to understand this and make it applicable to your mind, and then put it in your mind and leave all the propaganda away. So how do you catch thieves all at once? See, this operation is not partisan. That ain't partisan based. It's bipartisan. It's a lot bigger than one group, two group, three group. This also is not Republican, Democrat, which that's still the partisan, but still some people have to hear it 2 ways. So this whole thing, this dash, is for humanity. It encompasses all forms of trafficking being busted right now. So when President Trump, see, that's what gets me about patriots. They don't listen to him. You don't even listen to him. So why are you even involved right now if you don't even listen to the mouth and the face of the whole operation? That's all I do, is I'm the messenger who gets shot weekly for having the attitude I have, because all I'm doing is saying, hey, I'm a veteran, and all my veterans that know what's going on, I'm standing up for them too. There's a massive group of people who push me daily going, hey, baby, keep it up, baby. Keep it going. And I will, and I ain't backing down, because I know what's going on. And this will liberate you. This will free your mind. This will free your heart. This will free your stress, your anxiety, and everything else. If you're scared, you shouldn't be. This right here. And President Trump tells you from the get-go. So if you're still listening to the portion of President Trump when he'll say, 15 million people come to the border illegally, If you're still listening to all that, you're not awake. And if you claim that you are and you still fall for that, you're not. Because there's two ways he speaks. He says stuff that the average person needs to hear, who don't know anything about this yet, who ain't paying attention, don't know the three branches of government, don't know anything about the Declaration of Independence, don't know anything about the Constitution. He speaks to those people, trying to wake them up in every capacity, and they may never wake up, especially right now. October the 20th don't look like someone will until it's absolutely slapped in their face. All right, what's cleaned out on the backside, and then they're going to go, oh my gosh, they pulled this off like that. Well, you could have known the whole time if you'd just listened. So, do you want to be a laggard and follow that? Or the other portion that President Trump talks about, everything he says is coded, but it wouldn't be coded to you if you knew what was in place. That's what my role is. That's what I do. Is I show people, if you want to know what's going on, here's what's going on, bylaws and orders. It's not secretive. You can know, but it's going to be far-fetched to you if you've never heard of military laws and federal and how they pair and how they operate and how they function. That's the only way it's quote-unquote far-fetched or hogwash. That's the only way. But it's not hogwash and it's not far-fetched because it's all laws and orders. And a lot of these same people will be at the rally and President Trump goes, we're a nation of laws and orders. Yeah! And the same people going, yeah! Are the same people who will call me a quote-unquote conspiracy theorist. Or, this is all far-fetched. Why wouldn't I know about it? Why wouldn't we see something? Same comments from the same people. And it's not secretive. Everybody can know about it. So I'm just going to brush over a few little things because I have so many videos at this point that you can, someone asked me today what would be the best video to wake someone up at this point. Probably Rumble video called Back to the Basics. Where I go 3 hours on it and I go through from the top from June 12, 2015 all the way through. But just to brush over a few things, one, I'm going to end with what happened recently. That it's unequivocal proof. Which is funny to me. People want unequivocal proof, but they don't even know any of the language. So it's like, well, you want unequivocal proof, but then you get it, then what happens? Well, I need more. Show me more proof. Like, people can't even, you get one, massive chunk of proof, and you're like, oh, I need more proof. It's kind of like me, this book here is forwarded by a colonel retired, a lieutenant colonel retired, and a colonel retired, full bird colonel. Both special operations. One was a former deputy commander of Delta Force. Massive. The other one has written multiple publications. All right. And we have a ton of publications in the military. Right? But still, someone has to put it in that order. Go read a publication and look at the detail. And that's what commanders are reading. And what will people do? Well, how come there's only 2 who did that? Then we'll get on a podcast, we'll have about 10 of us on there. Well, why isn't there 20? I mean, you can't. Some people are you just can't. You can't. And then people wonder why we look the way we look. Because people put too much stock in entitlement and titles and names. Then you wonder why the kids look the way they look. Look at all the professors across the nation. Look at all the professors who they teach what they want to teach. Look at what they've done to your children, your grandkids. Look at what they've done to people. I'm a product of it too. I went to college. I know what happens. I know how they teach. It's all the curriculum. Look at what they've done to the world. So first off, I'm going to read this right here. I'm going to read this continuity of operations, because when people say, well, how would I not know and why would it look like this, yada, yada, yada. Well, a continuity of operations is so close to regular operations that you, the average person, if you're still thinking that way, it is so close to the average everyday functions that you have to be someone who really can see the little slight variances. So I'm going to read continuity of operations, because what we're going through right here, this right here is a special operation by the military, clandestine operations, a lot of it's secretive as far as the missions. But it's not when President Trump, when they put out certain laws and orders and you can go tangibly read them, when you know someone that knows that, that's why you don't need all this other propaganda. You need to know what this man operates with right there. That's it. And until that sure foundation, you don't need anything else. And if podcasters get mad at me, then they know where they can stick it. They can sit on it and rotate, because I'm tired of that. I'm a veteran who is doing everything by the book, by the law, by the orders, by the standard. I have an oath to keep. This ain't about no likes, no loves, no clicks, nothing like that. I have no subscriptions for a reason. I'm serving beyond my service, baby. We have a nation to save. And anybody who gets mad about me saying that, they can sit on it and rotate and take one more spin just for the fun of it. Because it's getting old and it's getting tiring looking out there. And a lot of these people ain't veterans. Now, you don't have to be a veteran to know what's going on, but when it comes down to it, it goes back to motives and also what's the principle, right? What is the principle? This man went through all of this bullcrap, all the ridicule, mockery, hatred, you name it, to save America and to put that dash into place. And until you make that dash your foundation, then if you want to be topsy-turvy all day, that's up to you. But you're doing yourself an injustice. But not only are you doing yourself an injustice, you're doing this man and his family, and you're doing the United States Armed Forces an injustice. Because everything that's going on right now, the past 8 years, right at 8 years, is all a special operation. It's a military occupation. It's continuity of operations. So let's read what the continuity of operations are. Here's the they have these things called national essential functions. Now listen to those root words. National, the states. Essential, important, functions. And I'll post this later where you can see it. I wish I could flip the camera around, but whatever. NEF 1, preserve our constitutional government. Number 2, provide visible leadership. Number 3, defend the country. Number 4, maintain foreign relations. Number 5, protect the homeland. Number 6, provide emergency response and recovery. Number 7, maintain a stable economy. Number 8, provide critical government services. Now, if you go over to a continuity of operations brochure, it says these things. Essential functions, the critical activities performed by organizations, especially after a disruption of normal activities. Order of succession, delegations of authority, continuity facilities, continuity communications, vital records management, human capital, tests, training, and exercises, devolution of control and direction, and then reconstitution. Well, there's things along the way to show you that those have taken place. January the 15th, 2021, Federal Continuity Directive came out called Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. So see, it may be foreign to you and you've never heard these terms and these titles and things before. However, if you care to know and want to know, that's what that dash is. And it's a lot of information. That little bitty dash holds a lot of information. But all along the way, from November the 8th, 2016, but especially when you saw the oath, January the 20th, 2017, and all the things that you've seen, there were visuals all along the way, or if you want to call them nuggets or whatever. But if you want to call it consolation and validation to show you that it's still going on, there are those daily that still show when you know the foundation of laws and orders, especially what the dash represents. When you know that, there are validities and consolations along the way that show you, okay, that's still going on. That's what that is. Okay, that's what that is. That's what that is. And it's all day, every day. And I mean, when I post stuff like the call signs and the SAM and everything, which we're going to go over in a minute, when I post that, that's your validity to go, oh, that's what Derek Jonhson, there's more validity. He talks about this all the time. The SAM call sign does this, this, and this, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's actually doing this, but that it's doing backs up this law back here, which means that's your validation that it's still ongoing. See, this right here is a playground. You see that? Let's just pretend there's a fence right here, and there's a fence right here. Now, it's not going to be a fence there when it's over, but just pretend right now that that is a playground. That's your parameter. That's your operational theater right there. 45-47. That is an operation. That's your parameter. It started right here, November the 8th, 2016, but theoretically it started January the 20th, 2017. And that end date of that one will be January the 20th, 2028. Now, when we get there, everybody will be on the page by then. By the time we get to the end of that, everybody will know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, I say everybody. It may be 90%. But when we get there, the next, number 48, will roll right into with the program. It'll look a lot better than what it's ever looked in your life when we get to 47 jumping to 48. Because everybody that's been cleaned out along the process and everybody that he's endorsed, his endorsements are freaking phenomenal, first off. But it's because people are tired and fed up of the swamp. So everybody that he endorsed and all the people that have gotten in his positions, by the time we get to the end of that number and it goes to 48, it'll be a lot smoother and it'll look like America's supposed to look long before the derailment of 1871 and 1878. But it would look a lot better right now if people would appreciate this dash now versus following all the pushers out there of propaganda and drama and all that other stuff. Because you don't have to. You already have what you need right here. You don't need all that other stuff. So, continuity of operations, national central functions. So why do patriots chant, drain that swamp, drain that swamp, drain that swamp? Why did you chant that if you're not even going to appreciate that you're watching the swamp being drained right in front of you? Because that's what's happening right now. That dash is the swamp being drained right now. And 99% of these podcasters over here on Instagram that think they're a podcaster, they ain't. A lot of them are just because they're pretty girls, and that's it. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. The world falls for all kinds of crap that don't matter. Let's just be honest. So, why do we have podcasters who yell, drain that swamp? And they don't even know the swamp is being drained right in front of everybody. And it's been done lawfully. And the other beautiful thing about it is the laws that were put into place and this dash actually made the swamp self-destruct itself versus being a dictator and doing it looking like dictator, then all the people who are on the polar opposite side of this, they can't say, oh, well, that was a dictatorship. Nope. All done lawfully. All done by laws and orders. That's why it's imperative to know the laws and orders in place and what they mean and how they function, how they operate. Because all of these people involved with this right here made the swamp drain lawfully. They didn't do it with dictatorship or with force. They set up this parameter of laws and orders, and that's why you never hear a liberal saying, you can't do that. No, what do? They try to say you're a fraud, or they'll try to say you're a pedophile, or they'll say that you're a child molester. They'll start talking about your mama. They'll talk about your daddy. Oh, they'll say you were with a hooker 40 years ago. They do all these things, right, with no proof, because it ain't about proof in the first place. They cannot talk the very laws and orders. See, laws and orders on paper have always been there. The laws and orders that President Trump's using, 95% of this dash were already on the books. They were never used the way they were prescribed on paper. See, the laws on paper, the lawyers and legislators who wrote them, they read perfect for when you go read them, you go, well, that's what. That's why you got to know every little intricate detail of what these people do when they talk out of one side of their mouth and they're actually doing the opposite of what's on paper. But what happened? 99% of Americans think that you have to be a lawyer to read the law. 99% of Americans think that you have to be a congressman or woman to know how Congress works. That's why we look the way we look. But there's a few people like me who know what's going on and know that you're watching the most biblical, monumental, historical, special operation known to man take place right in front of you. And you can know if you'll put all that propaganda and all these people aside and all these people out there talking about Kamala in present tense and Joe Biden in present tense and all this bullcrap. Anybody who uses Joe Biden and Kamala in present tense, I don't care if they got this all over their uniform. If they use those names in present tense, they do not need a page. This is not secretive once again. So all the people yelling, drain that swamp, drain that swamp, drain that swamp. You're watching the swamp being drained right in front of you. And you don't even realize it, a lot of you. Because I can tell when you're running over and listening to some clown who thinks that one directive weaponized the military against the people and all these other things I'm going to address tonight, when you still believe that and you fall for that, you do not have your foundation set upon the solid foundation of that dash. And it shows that you still want a big old silver spoon and a quick answer shoved down your throat. Americans want a quick spoon-fed. If it can't be told to you in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you want a quick answer, spoon-fed, short attention span. That's why we look the way we look in this nation. It's just, it is what it is. It's the way we look this way. So how do you claim to support a man and the military when you don't even know what this dash represents? Because that's it. That's what it's representing. And what do you think the president's role is? This is the other thing I ask people when I'm out on the road. What do you think the president's role is? Do you not know he's a chief executive officer of the executive branch? The executive branch does what? Enforces the law. Well, that means that the legislative branch that writes and passes, That means that the executive branch must know the laws and orders in place and what they can use to do what with? Well, set up a playground, set up a parameter lawfully. The judicial branch interprets the law. So when you listen to President Trump, when you listen to him, not hear him, when you listen to him, everything that he says in his speeches is in present tense of the executive branch. Now, listen to that again. Everything that President Trump talks about when he talks about the executive branch is in present tense. And I'm going to show you a few more examples again as I go through here. So it's kind of like the people who claim to support military. We have a lot of people who love the military, claim to support the military. Then you have a lot of veterans that, oh, well, I'm a veteran, so I love the military. I love the military, I'm a veteran. Well, how is it that we still have so many people in this nation that will claim that January the 20th, 2021 is far-fetched, when everything that everybody witnessed on January the 20th, 2021, when they thought they saw Joe Biden inaugurated, they didn't. It was not an inauguration by military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, and military traditions. Every single thing you can go tangibly put your eyes on a .mil site that tells you everything that you witnessed on January the 20th, 2021 was not an inauguration. It was nothing presidential at all. It was all a military operation. The only thing January the 20th, 2021 had anything to do with government-wise was a continuity of operations, because they had to show you something that day. But everything they showed you that day was nothing presidential, nothing governmental. Every single thing that you put your eyes on that day was military law, military orders, military regulations, military customs, and military traditions. That's the one giant nugget that can bring the curtains down, as the saying is, that can end the show, meaning that everything that you see, all you have to do is go back to January the 20th. Because I can tell you what right now, you talking about an uprising from hell, y'all ain't seen an uprising. If that was done that day just for dumb reasons, and it was never accounted for in history, veterans would have an uprising like you ain't ever seen in your life for disgracing the uniform if that was not a part of the military operation, which I know it was, but I'm saying hypothetically, and I hate hypotheticals, but for the sake of people who are still asleep and don't know what's going on, if that was done just to be done and whatever, and they butchered all that, every veteran across this nation that's in a grave right now, a memorial grave, that would have been a disgrace to their uniform. That would have been no different than pissing on their uniform, burning their uniform, dying in vain. No way, Jose. That was a visual for every American to see, to wake your butts up of what matters. That's what matters. Laws and orders, a precedent. We have to have principles in this nation. We have to have morals again. We have to have standards again. We have to have accountability again. We have to have responsibility again. Integrity. Standards. Honesty. Transparency. That was validation for every person who knew something was up, knew something ain't right. And you go, whoa, I know what that was. I know what that is. I know what that is. That wasn't right. That wasn't correct. None of that's right. None of that's correct. That was validity. That was consolation for your heart to go, whoa, this is way bigger than just D.C. This is way bigger than just Congress. This is way bigger. I'm watching something bigger. Bigger than life, humanity. I'm watching a world operation. And once again, if you're paying attention, you ain't heard a single liberal. I'm talking about the ones that are known. I'm talking about the people who are in the limelight. You ain't heard a single liberal say, you can't do that. You can't do that. No. They'll talk about your mama. They'll kick your dang dog. They'll spread all kinds of lies, false information. They'll make up stuff. They'll try to steal your trademark. They'll try to do all these things. They're dumb as bricks. They're dumb as dirt. Their heads are so far up their asses they can give themselves their own colonoscopies. That's what they are. But not a single one of them says you can't do that, because why? It's all laws and orders being carried out the way they're supposed to be carried out. And it is different for people who are sitting there watching, right? Innocent bystanders. It's different because you've never seen the laws and orders carried out the way they're supposed to be. But you're witnessing that. But you ain't heard a single liberal say you can't do that. Oh yeah, they'll spread the rumors. Once again, they'll try to lie on you and try to create drama and try to tear you apart, sabotage your career and all this other stuff. But you ain't heard. Now, the ones on the bigger levels, like the Pelosi's and all that, they're in an operation. And my family members this weekend, do they know too? Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching an operation. Yes, they know. There's things called NDAs and other kinds of things. Yes, they know. This is an operation. But they knew the average person wouldn't know what's going on, and therefore what? You wouldn't riot. You wouldn't go get out in the streets and act like Barney Fife with your little hip rod, your little hip iron. Because we would. We'd have some good old boy trying to get out there and go, ooh, I got my Second Amendment. Where do you want me? Let me fire this thing. I ain't fire this thing. Like, remember Andy Griffith and Barney? Remember Andy had to give Barney one bullet? And you know, that's why they showed him on the show, Andy Griffith, every now and then he'd forget. And he'd go to get his pistol, his iron side, remember? And he'd shoot before he'd get it out of the holster. And then Andy would go, give me the pistol. And Barney would go, oh man. Remember that? So this is why it looked this way. And it was perfect. It's perfect. But can you know? Yes, you can know. You can know everything that's going on right here. Because you got to know military, who's in command, who's in control, who's giving the orders, and then what's it look like as they're carried out. It's all right in front of you. That's why, once again, you don't see any of that. But you have 47 United States Code, Section 606, which is actually titled War Powers of the President. The President can control radio, TV, and Internet broadcasts. The 47 United States Code, Section 606, is actually the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So it's genius. It's ever more genius that there are so many Americans that don't know what's going on from the standpoint if they were going to be the kind to get out and riot and act like an idiot and act like Barney Fife. But if you want to know, you can, because that's what that is. So I'm going to just show a few examples and bring us up to speed on what's been going on because, like I said, all my videos are repetitive for a reason. You don't need 100, 200, 300 people in your live podcasters. You don't need all the other stuff. Once again, I'm going to put a heavy emphasis on. You don't need that. Until you have this foundation in your life, only then could you maybe go out and rabbit hole. Because when your foundation's solid, then you can't be shaken. But if you're still getting shook up, I'm all shook up. If you're still getting Elvis every day, if you're still Elvis 1956, if you get all shook up, all right, your foundation ain't where it needs to be. And until your foundation is on the very thing that's rolling the whole operation, until your foundation is solid on that, you don't need anything else in your life until then. And even then, you don't need anything else. But if you did want to just rabbit hole and go over there and, you know, talk about all the people in South Dakota, they believe Sasquatch is real. And I'm like, well, we got so much technology. Why ain't we seen it yet? Why wouldn't Harry and the Hendersons, why wouldn't Harry be mad at this point that people are going in the forest and doing certain things? I mean, I'm pretty sure that, but if you believe in aliens, you do your thing, boo-boo. I ain't seen one yet. If I see one, I want you to believe me. So I'm not going to say that they don't exist. I just ain't seen one. Ghosts, same thing. You believe in ghosts? I ain't seen one, but if I see one, I want you to believe me. But there's some things that just don't matter right now. They don't matter right now. They have nothing to do with that. Round earth, flat earth, who gives a dang? If the earth is round, it ain't got a thing to do with this dash. It don't affect this dash. It don't change this dash. It don't add to this dash. It don't take away from this dash. If the earth is flat, it don't add to this dash. It don't take away from this dash. Ain't got a thing to do with this dash. But if you want to believe that, okay. But once again, the only thing that matters right now and what our United States military is going through is that dash. And there's just some stuff out there that just needs to be so if you want calmness, if you want peace, if you want comfort, if you want tranquility, if you want all the things that provide you just a clear mind, a clear headspace, and just where you can focus on the things that you love during the day, you want to create more time and space for your life and energy, good positive energy, positivity. Get rid of all this other stuff that brings you down. Because this right here is all you need. It's all you need. You know that, now I don't know if the singer's good or bad, so don't go beat me up. But you know that commercial, you got what I need. That's all you need. And if you want to love and appreciate this man even more, that's all you need. If you want to love the military even more, that's all you need. I'm putting that away for the moment. I can prop my leg up and get kicked back. So we're just going to do a few things tonight, not a lot. And I normally do everything polar backwards. I'm going to do it backwards this time around. So the SAM call sign. So just this past week, I'm on the flight radar, and they got both VC-25s, which are typically your Air Force One transports. All right. They got both VC-25s going to Germany. And they claimed that Biden was in Germany. All right. First off, that castle they showed him at, all you got to do, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, all you got to do is when they say Biden is anywhere, all you got to do is go look it up. Go to YouTube, see it, screenshot it, or video screen it, and go, okay, there's that building. Then go actually look at the building they said he was in. It's daylight and dark difference. That was not the Schloss Bellevue Castle, first off. Not it at all. You can see the color variations. There's 3 different color variations of the one they showed quote-unquote Biden with. Baby blue, an ivory looking color, and a white. Or baby blue, white, and ivory, whichever. You go to Google, go look at this, type in the castle name. There's none of those 3 different color coordinations. The plants are in different spots. I mean, it's just like it. And then 2, I'm not a TV guy. I'm not a camera guy. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not any of that kind of nature. However, I have music videos. I do have people who are. You can look at the size of the building from a far off distance and then look at what they gave you on MSNBC or whatever that was, CNBC, whatever, whichever one was, probably all of them. But you can look at the size and the camera angles, and you can tell what is a prop and what isn't. The other thing is anytime a president is on an aircraft, they could be on a glider or a crop duster. It's called Air Force One because the president's on it. All right. So there's that. Some people get that confused. Now, your traditional Air Force Ones that have been used as Air Force One is the VC-25. There's two of them. One's got the tail number 28,000. The other one's got the tail number 29,000. All right. But when a president is on board, they normally fly with a SAM call sign, Special Air Mission. Be like Sam and their number. What number they are as president. All right. Joe Biden has not flown with a SAM call sign anywhere they've shown him. Kamala hadn't flown with a SAM call sign anywhere they've shown her. Why? So if I got to sit in a neutral seat and just be neutral and go, okay, let's look at everything that's supposed to be quote unquote presidential. Joe Biden has not received one thing that's presidential. Why not? If he got 81 million votes sitting in his Depends diapers in his basement, I mean, he should get everything presidential. How come he hasn't? All right, the other thing is you have FAA regulations, FAA.gov. All right, and I've shown this just this week alone. It happened 2 different times. All you got to do is filter out and go to civilian air traffic. All right, and still keep your eye and your cursor on the VC-25. FAA regulations 72.10.3DD. All right. If you go to those regulations, those are presidential and other regulations. Others meaning vice president. There is not to be a single aircraft remotely close in the proximity of the president or vice president. I have 4 or 5 different times, and I could have done it more than that, but maybe more. I don't know how many I have on file. But I have it where I've unfiltered and then have the civilian aircraft and the quote-unquote VC-25 not flying with a call sign in the first place. All right, empty or no call sign. And then there's aircraft all around flying over and under that VC-25, both of them. This past week, they were flying through the Atlantic Ocean. Aircraft going over and under. If that was a real president, now some of you out there that are still asleep and your head's up your rear end, you're up there giving yourself a colonoscopy, right? Those of you, you'll still say, well, this president's so stupid and this administration. And all you're doing is an injustice. I know I've heard all the comments out there. I can go ahead and predict. It ain't a lot of them, but there's some of them. Well, they're so stupid. No, it ain't real. You're watching a special operation. So that's military. That's your Air Force, ladies and gentlemen. The Air Force is who transports the president. So for layman's terms, that means the Air Force does not recognize Joe Biden, even though he's not real in the first place. But if you need to take baby steps, well, that's your first baby step. But after that baby step, your next step should be, it ain't real, because it's not. But if you need to take a baby step, that's your baby step. The National Guard. The National Guard have been out of their state jurisdictions weekly. Weekly. Ever since a certain order was put into place, and we're going to break that down in a minute. But the National Guard have been out of their states weekly and daily. The National Guard are typical. They do 1 week in a month of duty. They will report on a Friday night to their base. All right, and then they'll do 2 weeks of active duty a year. That's why they're the National Guard, is because they don't want to be on active duty and away from their homes all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's the difference. All right? Title 10 is your president, and that's also the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Title 50 is your Secretary of Defense, even though the president still has command in certain things. But then Title 32 is your National Guard. Title 32, National Guard. People still out there, I will still hear people, a lot of people, say that the governors have control of the National Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, get the terminology correct. The governors have control of their National Guard for state emergencies only. If governors have full, complete control of the National Guard all the time, without any kind of protocols that go beyond that, we would have had power-tripping governors for many, many years. And even though they could have done something stupid, that some of them would have tried it. And they haven't. One tried to do it in the 70s or 80s. It was an Alabama governor. And that was met swiftly. That did not happen. There's no other reason why the National Guard would be out of their state jurisdictions daily and weekly when most of these states that they're operating in do not have a single state emergency. That's your validity that this was put into place way back. They're all operating under an order that was way back here, not current. Even though the order's current because it's still ongoing, but it's not an order that just got put into place the day before or the day of these aircraft leaving their state jurisdictions. You gotta listen. The National Guard, they're out of their state jurisdictions daily. Today they were out. Of course, a lot of people say, well, it's the weekend. So see, you'll have the people who will argue with you because if you happen to get someone who's listening to you and it's on the weekend, they'll pull that card on you. But that's when you got to know when the order was put into place. And go, no, good try, Jose, but it ain't going to work. The order was put into place 4 years ago. Then they're going to pull the whole, well, that was 4 years ago. Doesn't matter. Hasn't been revised, hasn't been revoked. You might want to know how the law works. You might want to know how laws and orders operate and function. See, there's always, I know how you feel. I know how a lot of you feel out there. There's always that one. They'll turn and say it, well, that's, you just answered them, but then they'll turn around. Well, that's 4 years old. Then you go, well, you might want to know how the laws and orders function and operate. If you just want to be argumentative, then keep looking like a fool. That's on you. That's what you do to them. You say, that's on you if you just want to keep looking like a fool, because you look like a fool. National Guard are out of their state jurisdictions daily, weekly, and monthly, and has been that way since these orders. And that's just not how they operate and function on a normal. Then you have the Chief of the Coast Guard. There's two of those that have been on National Guard bases daily. They were on one today. You have SAM call signs, which are all over National Guard bases. There was a SAM call sign in South Korea earlier. All right. So all of your Department of Defense are flying with a SAM call sign, but nothing of the president. I wonder why. Weird. Not weird. All the dash. And I'm going to show you where. All right, so I'm doing all the smaller nuggets first on this podcast. All right, so more validity. All right, so the last government publishing office director, guess who was appointed by? President Trump. The first federal continuity directive that came out that was reissued January 17th, 2017, guess who published that? The Government Publishing Office. .gov. So that brand new reissued Federal Continuity Directive 1 that talks about devolution and reconstitution and all was put out by the Government Publishing Office. To this day, when you go to it and read it, gpo.gov. the last director appointed to the director, who's still there, is appointed by President Trump. All right? The National Security Council. National Security Council. Who says that President Trump is a threat to democracy, is a threat to laws and orders, don't need to be anywhere remotely close to the White House, D.C., laws and orders? Who says that all the time? Kamala and Biden? The national security. He's a threat to national security. All right. Well, National Security Council, they're on a usgovernmentmanual.gov. When you go over to that website, you scroll all the way down, it still lists General Milley. Weird. But when you click on it, it goes over to Charles Brown, not Milley. It goes to Charles Brown. Well, the last time that website was updated, March 2021. Wow, haven't we lived through 2021, 2022, 2023? Aren't we almost through 2024? And this website hadn't been updated since March 2021? All right, if you go over to defense.gov, if you go to Google and you type in National Security Strategy, .gov, and you pull up the defense.gov where they're supposed to be archived. I call it housed, but if you want to use proper terms, it's archived. All right. If you go over there, guess what's there? The last one is December 2017. Weird. If you went to Google and typed in Joe Biden, National Security Strategy, .gov, 2022 pops up, but it's on whitehouse.gov, which is not where it's housed, because guess who operates the National Security Strategy? That would be the Department of Defense, which is defense.gov. So when you go to defense.gov, the last one on the page is Donald John Trump, 2017. Author, Keith Kellogg, 3-star general. See, Biden's on the White House would be a continuity of operations, because if you are someone that knows how to look that up, you might not think anything about whitehouse.gov. You might not know it's supposed to be on defense.gov. So it does what? It appeases your mind, and then you go, oh, well, he is. No, it's supposed to be on defense.gov. If you go over to the United States Marine Corps on YouTube, if you go to YouTube and type in United States Marine Corps, the President's Home, they have like 126,000 subscribers. That's the official United States Marine Corps band. All right? You're going to have to do it on a laptop, because it won't let you do it on a phone. But get on the laptop and scroll. It don't tell you years. It says 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago. It does like that. But if you scroll all the way down, they don't have a single inauguration on there of Joe Biden or President Trump. But they do have one right around President Trump that shows Obama on there. Why don't they have the inaugurations up? Because this has been a military occupation the whole time. Even 45 wasn't a president by constitutional standards. It's been a wartime president by constitutional standards the whole time. There's more than enough proof. And because state.gov, if you go over to the state.gov, it says the last president to travel abroad, Donald J. Trump, 2017 to 2021. The last Secretary of State to travel abroad, Mike Pompeo. The last foreign leader to the United States, 2020. Then if you go over to certain portions of the page of the website, state.gov, where all they're supposed to be archived, it says what? Currently suspended. Last updated. It says March on there, 2021, I believe it is. But the last date to be updated on there, the last date period is December the 21st, 2020. as the last date of any kind of date on the state.gov. Haven't we lived through 2021, 2022, 2023 again, and almost through 2024? Why can't we see that archive? And didn't the National Central Function say vital records management? I mean, it's what it says under FEMA.gov here. It says, it says it right there. It says vital National Central Function. Am I not reading what I'm reading? Vital records management? All right, so January the 6th, January the 17th, and January the 20th, 2021. The only person who could have put the National Guard into D.C. was Donald John Trump. See, because that's Title 10. And D.C. is a foreign territory. It don't matter how crazy that is to you out there, and it is. It's you think about a chunk of land inside the U.S. is a foreign territory. But by military laws and military orders and military everything, D.C. is a foreign territory. So for all 50 states, the first time in U.S. history, all 50 states were in one location was on January the 20th, 2021 for a inauguration. Do you really think that Americans were going to riot that? Really? If the South was going to quote-unquote rise again, it would have been with a black president, not an old white man. So if you just want to go to the most far-fetched thing out there with the redneck bubbas and all that, if the South was going to do anything or whatever, because that's the real big differences in this nation is the Southern culture and the Northern culture. That's what everybody hangs on with the Civil War, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if there was going to be any kind of crazy whatever, it would have been with Barack Obama, not an old white man who can't tell his head from the hole in the ground if you think he's real. He's not. But if you think that, then it would have been not him. It would have been way back here. Because that's the most controversial, different thing we've had, which it wasn't, I guess, necessarily controversial to the liberals. But if you're going to make it that's what it would have been. Not an old white man. Because, why? We had 43 other presidents before number 44 that were what? Old white men. So, of course, people are going to say January 6th. January 6th is negated by laws and orders. That was all a special operation. That's why you got to get the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide in your life and go to page 11 and look at the diagram on it. It will change your life. I've introduced this to so many people and it changes their life. When you read what's on this diagram via the United States Military Special Operations, it'll change your life. So every time they show Joe Biden, a lot of times when they show Joe Biden anywhere, there's a soldier that's nearby, and the insignia says what? It's a color. It's purple and green. Civil affairs and psychological operations. You're all being psyoped in a good way. This is actually a good one. This is a counter psyop more than it is a psyop, but it's a counter psyop because it's trying to desynthesize all these brains out there that you think, oh, well, Derek Jonhson says it's a military occupation. How come I don't see the military doing things? Because you ain't looking right. You're not looking at what you're supposed to be looking at. You think that when you hear military in operation, it's supposed to look like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and all these other places throughout history. It ain't that. It's not that kind of war. It's not that kind of battle. President Trump tells you all the time the enemy is within, but it's what? The swamp. Drug trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking. How do they fund all of their illegal activities? Trafficking. That's why most every law and order put into place right now is going against human rights and all forms of trafficking. And when you wipe all that out, they're monetary system, their unlawful monetary, then boom, you got them. All right, the only person, once again, who could have put those troops into D.C., President Donald John Trump. Once again, first time in history, all 50 states were in one location at one time. January the 6th is negated with Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency that was signed September 12, 2018. There's one line in that whole executive order, which I've already outlined that. We're not going to do that tonight. You can go watch other videos. All right, the only person who could have done that. That was your visualizations that this right here was going to another phase of the operation because of what happened on January the 20th, 2021. And I'll run down that one more time because that's a big nugget for people. One, Joe Biden did not receive a traditional flight into D.C. on Air Force One. So if you need a baby step, the only allotment, a baby step that you're going to get is that says the Air Force does not recognize Joe Biden. Even though this is a massive operation, you really don't need that baby step, but if there's only one way to get you to take the next leap over to understand this whole thing as a special operation, then that means the Air Force does not recognize Joe Biden. Obama got a ride into D.C. on Air Force One. Clinton, name all the Democrats. How come Joe Biden, if he got 81 million votes sitting in his whitey-tighty depends in his basement, how come he didn't get a traditional flight in? Why wouldn't liberals be losing their minds that their guy did not get the traditional flight into D.C. on Air Force One? If he's president, he deserves that. If he's president, you would have to remove your emotions and remove how you feel about him, etc., and go, well, but guess what? All the things that took place on January the 20th, 2021 was not presidential. No Air Force One ride. 2, he raised his right hand at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment of the Constitution. The president's term ends at noon. The successors shall then begin. And you'll still have people who'll say, well, it doesn't matter as long as it's on that day. You are a fool. Every other president swore in at 12:01 to 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a reason. You ignorant fool. If you think like that, apply that. If you don't, it ain't for you. That term ignorant fool is anyone who says that. Also, no National Guard saluted the motorcade. We always salute the Commander-in-Chief and a moving flag. So either way, there was going to be a flag on that motorcade. Because that's what you see when the president rolls around, they put flags on the front. So either way, guess what did not happen? Not one single soldier saluted that moving flag and that motorcade. That was in order. They were told to stand down because that is not the Commander-in-Chief. That is not the president. Wasn't even anybody in there in the first place, except for a bunch of actors and actresses. Amazing Grace was performed. If you go to Army regulations, Amazing Grace is normally done with bagpipes, but it wasn't done that way for certain visuals because it wasn't real, but they showed as much as they could to show you. Amazing Grace is a funeral song. All right. Also, cannons. Any kind of cannon salute. It don't matter what kind of cannon salute. There's a commissioned officer to be present for all cannon salutes. That is Army regulations. That's 600-25, 2-3 cannon salutes. A commissioned officer should be present at every cannon salute. There wasn't a commissioned officer there. The only cannons they showed all day long for Joe Biden were at Arlington National Cemetery. Out of those soldiers who weren't even real in the first place, if you think that's the 3rd Infantry Regiment, you're doing such an injustice for the 3rd Infantry Regiment. Those men are so sharp, the way they function and operate. But the only cannons, there wasn't a commissioned officer there. Military regulation violation. And then the only cannons they showed you all day long for Joe Biden were 3 cannons at Arlington National Cemetery. A 21 gun salute, where everybody gets confused once again with a 21 gun salute, is 21 guns. And I know it's maybe dirty to some women, but it don't matter. It gets the point across, and women who are women don't really care because it's a fact. This is my weapon. This is my gun. This is for shooting. This is for fun. That's an old Army cadence. It's in movies out there. You can hear it. This is my weapon. This is my gun. This is for shooting. This is for fun. In the military, you don't call a rifle a gun. You call it a weapon. You don't call a knife. You call it a weapon. It's just a weapon. It separates certain things. All right? So when people hear 21 guns, they get confused because there's all different kinds of 21 gun salutes. 21 guns is the number of rounds fired. But guess what? There's 21 gun salute. There's a 19 gun salute, 17 gun salute, 15 gun salute, 13 gun salute, 11 gun salute, 7 gun salute, and 5 gun salute. It can be done with rifles and it can be done with cannons. But a 21 gun salute, by definition, is 4 cannons, 21 rounds fired. 3 for fire and 1 for misfire. The only 4 cannons, 21 rounds shown all day long on January the 20th, 2021 were with Donald John Trump at Joint Base of Andrews with the red carpet rollout. And guess who it was? That was the 3rd Infantry Regiment, and the news told you that. That was the official presidential salute battery with President Donald John Trump. That was your inauguration. What they showed for Joe Biden was 3 cannons at Arlington National Cemetery, which is not a 21 gun salute. And Arlington National Cemetery.mil tells you that. And to this day, we still have people who want to argue that. And when I say people, I'm talking about even podcasters to this day want to argue that. And the only thing they showed all day long, they showed you the 4 cannons, 21 guns were with President Donald John Trump, and the only cannons for Joe Biden were 3 cannons at Arlington. And you go to the website, arlingtonnationalcemetery.mil, the official site for Arlington. The 3 volley salute is not to be confused with the 21 gun salute. How hard is that? I mean, really? It's not to be confused with it. Not to be confused with the 3 volley, 3 cannons, 3 volley, seen or heard at Arlington, rifle or cannon, is not to be confused with the 21 gun salute. The 3 volley salute is a funeral service. And the reason why I get more frustrated at that and mad is because you're doing every man and woman in a memorial grave, you're doing them a disjustice. You're pissing on their uniform, you're shitting on their grave, and you're shitting on their service, because all of us that have been in the military, no matter how long you were in and what you did, everybody swore in under the same Title 10. So anybody who's doing that, but especially a podcaster, they don't need a podcast. Especially if they claim to be a President Trump supporter and they claim to love the military. They don't need to be remotely close to a TV, camera, keyboard, or anything. And those of you that still follow them, you're not doing your job either. So Title 10 versus Title 50. Title 10 is your president. Title 50 is your Secretary of Defense. So on December the 20th, 2019, there were a few things that took place that I always break down. The Space Force was established. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is Title 10, was overhauled its first time since 1950. All right, which means the Courts Martial Handbook by the Judge Advocate Generals had to be updated and reissued. So those 2 things took place. The Global Fragility Act was passed, which is very key for certain kind of conflicts. All right, got to go read about that. And then you had the last person, so we've already broke down the state.gov. So the last Deputy Secretary of State, the last person appointed was December the 20th, 2019. And they were sworn in the next day. Then you had your Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 amended. That 1550 was not in there until Congress and President Donald John Trump put it there. That's why that's very key and vital to understand. That's what sets this more into motion than anything. Now, it was still all planned. They weren't firing at the hip as they went along. This means this was all planned. It means that they knew when they got to this step, this is what we're going to do. When we got to this step, this is what we're going to do. When we get to this month, this is what we're going to do. It was still all planned out. That's why that's important. But Title 50 is your Secretary of Defense. Title 50 is War and National Defense. Title 50, Chapter 33, War and National Defense, War Powers Act of 1973. All right. This is a special operation, meaning clandestine operations, meaning unconventional warfare, meaning irregular warfare. The reason why that's important is I'm going to read it right here. In the very first paragraph, it's actually titled Reports and Briefings on Use of Military Force and Support of Partner Forces. Not later than 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees, the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, and the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives, a report on actions taken pursuant to the authorization for use of military force against those countries or organizations described in such law, as well as any actions taken to command, listen now, very key, any actions taken to command, coordinate, participate in the movement of or accompany the regular or irregular forces. Regular or irregular military forces of any foreign country or government when such forces are engaged in hostilities or in situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances during the preceding 180-day period. That means it's covered on both sides, preceding and after, preceding and after. But that one word there, irregular military forces, ties in your whole special operations, your whole clandestine operations, your whole covert operations, your whole subterranean warfare, unconventional warfare pocket guide, special operations. That one word ties in the special operations. And there's so many visuals of it being a special operation. On that diagram in the 2016, it was put out by the Special Operations Command in 2016 April, was very key to the timeline of this setup. Very key. That one word ties in everything. And the dates of this once again. So you got to go over to that 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, Special Operations Command.mil, and then go to page 11 on the PDF and get this diagram in your life. That diagram will change your world. It looks like a pyramid, and every line it has something on it. And I'm going to read a few of them when I tie in this, but you got to get this in your life. That's your Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. The reason why it's key is because what happened in that first 180 days is what sets this up. In that first 180 days, this is what took place. On March 2nd, 2020, the Defense Production Act was amended and extended to September the 30th, 2025. We're nowhere remotely close to that. That's a whole other year off. It's 11 months away. March 2nd. If you went to Title 50, which is Secretary of Defense, if you went to Title 50, Chapter 55, which is your actual Defense Production Act itself, you'll see Joe Biden's name in there twice. But if you went to Google and typed in Defense Production Act Joe Biden, there's off-the-wall sites. Some say he invoked it 8 times, some say 11. They don't even know. Go to House.gov, go to the Department of Defense, go to the Defense Production Act itself, .gov. It's on the House.gov site. Title 50, Chapter 55. His name's in there twice. One of those is the baby formula shortage. And when you go over to the mainstream articles, it says that the Secretary of Defense approved this mission. Listen to what that says. Secretary of Defense approved the mission. Meanwhile, Biden was doing this. Blah, 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 blah. That's the continuity of operations. So for people who don't know the laws and orders, they read that and they go, okay, well, Secretary of Defense, blah, blah, blah. Have no clue. The other that's in the Defense Production Act itself is a Donald Trump act that he signed and passed. So both entries by Biden's name in the Defense Production Act are Donald John Trump. And here's why. You got to listen carefully. That first 180 days. This proves that these powers didn't transfer. So you got to listen carefully. This proves this. In that first 180 days, the Defense Production Act was amended and extended to September 30th, 2025. March the 27th, Donald Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. That was a direct order from the Commander-in-Chief. Then, with Executive Order 13919, on April the 30th, 2020, he directed a direct order to the Secretary of Defense, equal authority to federalize the selected reserves. Both of those executive orders, 13912 and 13919, invoke Title 10, Section 12302 and Title 10, 12304. The only person who can federalize the National Guard reserve components to active duty is the President. Title 10, Sections 12302, 12304, and 12406. The reason why that's important is because those powers didn't transfer. That made President Trump, by law, a wartime commander. Now, he was already acting like that, and there's ways to prove that, but for the baby steppers out there, if you need baby steps, then that would be your baby steps. I can prove he was always in a wartime command for certain reasons, but if you need it by laws and orders, then that's your laws and orders to prove that. And here's the Title 50 showing you this. So that first 180 days, those things took place. Now, for the people out there who just can't get right, as the saying is, who want to sit and argue tooth and nail, they'll say, well, why is this and why is that? And why did we see a joke? First off, he's not real. If you can't tell the difference in the looks, you're in trouble. All right. Then you'll have people who say, well, they've always had doubles. Okay, you want to go that route? Then let's go that route. I can play devil's advocate for you. I can sit in a neutral seat for you. And any way you want to get pinned in this corner over here in my house, any way you want to get slammed up in the corner, I can slam you in the corner and go, when are you going to listen? Every way you want to get in the corner, I'll put you in the corner and still show you that Donald John Trump is a wartime commander. So if you want to go with the fact that, oh, well, that power transferred and the president's term ends at this, no, a president's term can be expanded by a presidential emergency action document. There are a series of proclamations, a series of executive orders, and a series of national emergencies all put into place and presented to the Congress by the president. But guess who presented it to him? The DOJ. All right, very, very key. You got to know these processes. There's enough proof that President Trump signed the P, the Presidential Emergency Action Document, by the circumstances that were taking place. And he told everybody in 2020, March 2020, he told everybody, why would the mainstream media be asking him, is he a wartime president in the first place? So they're showing you the visuals right there. That's a com. Most people, before studying what a wartime president is, most Americans would have never known the difference in a president and a wartime president, because you've always seen war in a certain manner, but not the way it's supposed to be by laws and orders. A lot of Congress have abused their powers. It made it look like presidents did, but when they amended the War Powers Act in 1973, they tried to limit the power of the president. They already did it over here in 1951 by putting term limits on the president. That's unconstitutional. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that Congress is to tell how many terms a president's to serve. Now, our founders left that open, but that's what they did it for. So Congress violated the Constitution in 51. Then in 73, they amended the War Powers Act and they tried to put more constraints on the president. So every Congress since 1973 has abused the law as it's prescribed, all the way to 2016. That's why this stuff is so hard for people to comprehend, is because you've never seen it enforced the correct way. And no, the powers aren't supposed to transfer. When a president declares a war via the ways that they say he can declare it, or the use of military, is not supposed to transfer. That shows you the swamp that they've had all these years. It should show you that. That very thing should show you what Congress has been abusing all this time. And by making certain presidents look like, oh, well, they're going to change this when they get in. And oh, they're going to change. No, it kept you in topsy-turvy, and it kept their own checks and balances, not what the checks and balances as prescribed by law and our founders were about. Now, once you go back and listen to that again, and hear that again, and play that over, when it clicks, it's going to click. That right there is being prescribed as it's supposed to be prescribed, as these laws were written and supposed to be carried out by the military. So, that first 100 days. So if you still want to say that Joe Biden is real, okay, let's go. I can put you in the corner and go, all right, well, down here in the executive documents, it says right here, July 19th, 2021. So let's do the math. January 2021. All right, you think that he was inaugurated? It wasn't. It was a military funeral service by military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military traditions. It can't be argued. Everything visually you saw on January the 20th, 2021 was a military funeral service. Military honors, as they call it. But, since I'm playing neutral seat, there's no but to it. But we'll do some math here. January the 2021, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. And even though that's not a 6 month, it's really little 5 months, give or take. 5.5, we'll say. So 5.5 months later, after everybody thought they witnessed an inauguration, and they didn't, but 5.5 months later, Joe Biden, in the same Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, in the very bottom, executive documents, it says this: delegation of authority under Section 1285 of the National Defense Authorization Act. Ladies and gentlemen, the NDAA is the defense budget. That's what pays the military, all the armed forces. That's what pays them. That's what pays for everything. Every action, every weapon, every system, everything. The NDAA. All your armed forces, all the different branches, that's what pays them. It says Memorandum of President of the United States, July 19, 2021, provided memorandum for the Secretary of Defense. So this is, quote unquote, if you think Joe Biden's real, then you're in for a rude awakening. All right? Double rude awakening. One, is not real. It's a special operation. Two, if you still just want to be that fool that wants to argue when you don't even know laws and orders, most of you listening that are still arguing that, not the ones that do. This is for your friends and family who are still arguing with you. Remember, my platforms are for people who are still arguing with you, for you to take the video and give it to them and go, okay, you still want to argue, Jose? Let's go. All right, if you're not a Jose, if you're a Helena or whatever, I can roll with it if you're a female. If you want to argue with your family and your friends, then here's the deal. One, you want to argue military, you're already in trouble. But if you want to do that, you want to go the extra step, okay, I'll put you in the corner again. Right here, memorandum for the Secretary of Defense. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States. See, you'll hear that and go, well, it says right there, by the authority vested in me as a president. Well, you got to keep reading, Jose and Helena. It says, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President of 1285A3, which is Section 1550, to the Secretary of Defense on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Now that right there, if you think Joe Biden is real, that right there is Joe Biden relinquishing his authority as a president and commander-in-chief to the Secretary of Defense. Because Section 1550 was put into place by Donald John Trump and the Congress. Now we got to turn back to the Secretary of Defense and know who their role is and what they are and what they do. Because that's what that is. So, let's look at the Secretary of Defense. The Secretary of Defense is appointed by the President. So they're normally second in line to the military under the President. This is why laws and orders matter and the functions of those and the operations of them. Now you got to go back to Executive Order 13919, where President Trump directed a direct order to the Secretary of Defense, equal authority to federalize the reserve components. But the Secretary of Defense is never over the President if the President is alive. There's an order of precedence if something happens to the President, the Vice President, etc., etc. But Secretary of Defense, in the order of precedence, if the President is visually alive, but the Secretary of Defense is normally under, second in line to the military under the President, Commander-in-Chief, but President Trump directed equal, and here's Joe Biden, for the people who thinks he's real, saying, I don't want this, I relinquish my authority and functions, the authority and functions vested in the President of 1550, well, that's Donald John Trump. So, who's the Secretary of Defense listening to? It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer because the laws and orders put back over here in 2020 have not been revised, have not been terminated. They're still active. And the National Guard out of their states every single day are under that Title 10. Now, the nugget is coming after a few more little things I'm going to go over. So pause on that. I should have done that second, but we'll do this separately. But the liberals call President Trump a felon. All right. So if President Trump was a felon by a civil court, that's how dumb they are, first off. So Biden, if Biden was real, then the same Biden who people think would be president should be the same Biden as vice president. So Vice President Biden and Obama hammered their own three-star general, the director of the National Defense Intelligence Agency, with the Logan Act, which is 18 United States Code, Section 953. 18 United States Code is the federal crimes and criminal procedures. Federal, not civil. Federal, which is way bigger. Because he met with a Russian leader, a private correspondence. So the title of that is Private Correspondence with a Foreign Leader. All right, if President Trump is a former president, he has now met, since April 2024, he has met 7 leaders 8 different times. 7 foreign leaders. All at either Mar-a-Lago, via phone, or Trump Tower, which would be a private correspondence with a foreign leader. And it's an election year, so therefore that would be a violation of Federal Election Committee rules. That would be a violation of the very law that President Trump put into place with a national emergency, Executive Order 13848. We'd come out multiple violations. So those violations, along with the Democrats and liberals could charge him with the 25th Amendment. They could hit him with the 25th Amendment. They could charge him with 18 United States Code Section 953, the Logan Act, plus all those others tacked on there, and forever ban him from being president if he was a former president. That's your nugget. That's your validity that he's not a former president. You can't argue with this stuff. You can try, but you're going to look pretty bad. So that's why liberals they look atrocious right now. And liberals are not only atrocious, but they're actually supporting the polar opposite. See, this special operation flipped them on their back. It flipped them. Now, Kamala was bragging about what? She said that she had 200, former 200 Bush aides, Romney, McCain, and then she bragged about Dick Cheney. All these people kept us in foreign oil wars. Liberals used to bash George Bush because of foreign oil, foreign wars, and foreign oil. Now the same liberals are bragging that Kamala has endorsements by them. You know how hypocritical that is if that was real? You know how dumb they look? I'd rather be hated for believing in something but being consistent with it than being loved for being a flip-flopping hypocrite. Especially a hypocrite on something that is, that got many, many Americans killed. Many. Not just armed forces, but contractors, you name it. Many people have died for the political games that these liberals are now supporting. And we're talking about low-level liberals. We're talking about our level liberals. People who are average, everyday people. They do not realize what has just flipped upside down on them. That's what they're supporting when they do that. They're supporting foreign oil, foreign wars for it, and American lives being lost, all because of propaganda and political games. And that's where veterans, we got to step up. It don't mean your service was null and void, but we have to address why we were in these foreign wars. Has nothing to do with raising our right hand and supporting our Constitution. When we take a right, we say what? It says, I do solemnly swear to what? Support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. When it says foreign and domestic in that context, it's talking about when people come to our nation and try to take it from us here on our soil to defend any foreign people here. Not for political propaganda, politicians to create some bullcrap with a nation, that, especially if they're landlocked, when it was our Congress who provided them with all of our old equipment. But they still didn't know what to do with a lot of it, and they still weren't threatening us that way. So when you really think about going to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, all the places we've been in the last 6 years, Vietnam, etc., Korea even, when you think about it, none of these nations were a threat. No, they were not. So we have to address the war, not your service. Your service is not in question. It's the wars created by whom? Congress, who did what in 1951? Violated the Constitution atrociously. In 1973, amended the War Powers Act, where they took way more power away from even the presidential role. Someone who would be the bigger face of the whole thing, from stepping up and saying, hey, this is unconstitutional. They did what? And then they put people in place who would go along with a lot of these violations. We have to address that. You can't be scared to address that. If I can take it, you can take it. And it ain't that bad. There ain't nothing. Where we are right now, this right here is set up the perfect storm scenario for us to go, hey, we're safe. This is all a special operation. We have to address that for future's sake. We have to get that right for the future, but we also have to rewrite that history in a good kind of way, not rewrite it necessarily, but for our children and grandchildren and their grandchildren, we must make sure that this never happens again. And you can't be scared, you can't be afraid to address it. So that's what Kamala, even though she's not real, but those people out there that think she is, woo, boy, did this special operation ever pull one on them. They pulled one. I mean, you talking about brilliant and epic. That's what all these liberals are supporting, and they don't even realize what flipped on them. Tariffs. During the quote-unquote debate with Biden, right? The tariffs. He said the tariffs were killing the economy, and President Trump goes, well, why don't you get rid of my tariffs? Ladies and gentlemen, the tariffs, they're not legislation. All you got to do is call and say, hey, all right, you know what? You've been screwing us over for 500 years. Well, you can keep doing that. We're removing the tariffs. It's all good. People got to listen. I mean, that one little thing was a big nugget. Well, okay, so for you that thinks Joe is real, okay, Joe, so the tariffs are killing the economy. Why don't you remove the tariffs? Why do you keep the tariffs in place? Little things like that. All right. Kamala. All right. Back over here during her little quote-unquote debate. Not real, whatever. If you think it is, it's not. First thing right out the gate, ABC host says what? President Trump, you and Kamala took office 4 years ago. Who took office 4 years ago? The first thing out of the ABC dude's mouth when he was setting it up. You think he messed that up? Come on, people. But the key thing out of that whole night, there was a bunch of key things, but there's one that just stands alone that's just so beautiful. Because I remember the 2008 recession. I lived in Nashville, Tennessee, and we had a gas shortage. And it was a pain in the rear. It took 3 or 4 weeks for them to really get everything worked out. I mean, people had to sit at home. I mean, if you didn't have gas in your vehicle, then you had to hop a ride, hitch a ride, or whatever. It was bad. It was a bad time. So you got to listen, not hear. Listen to key words. This is why terminology matters. On her little quote-unquote debate, she said 3 different things, but still, she said, I have 16 Nobel Peace Laureates. Well, first off, the Nobel Peace Prize, all right, that one thing could be, so talking about she had 16 Nobel Laureates that were backing her. In 2020, guess what was taken off the shelves? Ivermectin. Guess what won a Nobel Peace Prize in medicine? Ivermectin, which is known to cure cancer because it removes parasites out of your body. All right. So why did they take that off the shelves? I know people who lost horses during that time period because ivermectin is also used with horses. I know people who lost horses because the deep state retaliation. But it's really about uneducated people who were just listening to a few low-level hanging fruit because this operation wiped out the top level quick. It was just a working top to the bottom. So why were people still doing that? It shows people don't educate themselves on what matters. They want to do what fits their beliefs first. And that's why I'm saying this stuff is not far-fetched. It's not too... But if you've never heard of military laws, military orders, regulations, etc., how they pair with executive orders, national emergencies, etc., then that's why we still had low-level hanging fruit doing what they've been doing. That's why it's imperative for every one of you on our level, small level, I'm just like you. That's why it's imperative to know this stuff. Because they're still going to, you can't eradicate evil and you can't eradicate stupidity. You can vote it out, you can fire it, but if you don't acknowledge it and recognize it, then they can still stay in at a low level. That's why you got to get tough. That's why you can't be afraid of anything. Don't worry about what people say. Don't worry about it. When you have the validity, that's all that matters. So, ivermectin. Then she said, straight out of her mouth, Donald Trump has no plan for you. Well, what does the average person do there? Oh my gosh, yes he does. We've already seen him as president one time. Yes he does. Da, da, da. That's what the average person does. Do you want to be average? Well, you can be average all day long. But if you want to sit back and go, wait, now I know what this dash means. This dash is a plan. It's a blueprint of laws and orders of how this nation functions and operates via the military and federal, and then how they pair. All right? So if you sit back and go, wait, the root word of that sentence was Donald Trump has no plan for you. So the word plan is your root word. Underline it. Circle it. Then the very next thing she said as her validity, as her, quote unquote, even though she's not real, but for the people that thought, her validity was two different people. She used the Wharton School of Finance. Then she also used Goldman Sachs. Way back in November 15, 2022, President Trump, the night he announced his candidacy for president, right, which threw everybody for a loop, all different kind of ways, he said some very key code words that night. One, he said, pretty soon, out of all the talk about, he talking about the economy, it said right in the middle of it, he goes, and pretty soon we're going to put our beautiful flag on the surface of Mars. That was an instant catch for me way back then. I put that out. It's like military auxiliary radio system. All throughout 2022, he had been advertising emergency radios all over the OAN and Newsmax. There was emergency radio commercials for 2021 and 2022, heavy, even on regular TV. And he drops that comm in there, which he just did again the other day. He said, pretty soon we're going to be in Mars by the end of my term. In Mars, not on Mars, in Mars. All right, that was November the 15th, 2022. Also that same night, he said, what? We're going through what I call the pause right now. A pause. Well, most average people thought what? Oh, well, yeah, it's a pause, all right. Boy, this president sure is, he's out of the, he don't know what's going on, We're going through a pause, all right. No. Pause is an SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission acronym. Public Alert Unregistered Soliciting Entities. Well, guess what? If you go over to the SEC.gov, if you went to Google and typed in Goldman Sachs, SEC.gov 2021, well, actually 2022, we'll do the newest ones. 2022, 2023, and 2024. Guess who's been hammered by the SEC.gov? Goldman Sachs. Well, guess what that is? Executive Order 13959 with a national emergency declared by Donald John Trump November the 12th, 2020. It went into effect January the 11th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Inside the executive order, it's that specific. Immediately after that order went into place, Jeff Bezos stepped down from Amazon. Bill Gates and his wife announced divorce. Warren Buffett left the Bill Gates Foundation. Mark Zuckerberg started dumping. He dumped $350 million in about 6 months' time of stocks. 2,500 CEOs stepped down in that calendar year alone. Fortune 500 company, you name it. And they've still been stepping down. They've still been hammered. Right now, the SEC.gov has 3,000 pages, not names, 3,000 pages of names of the assets frozen by Executive Order 13959. And here's Kamala, who I told someone the other day, she could be the new president of 23andMe since they're going through troubles right now with all the DNA that's passed through her mouth. Goldman Sachs ain't what she wants in her mouth. See, that's why you got to listen. And I know we got to bring humor. I got to bring humor in this, so you're supposed to laugh, but it's dirty, but whatever. You got to bring some humor in there because that's what she's known for. All right? Goldman Sachs is not who you be wanting to use as two examples, Wharton, but it's Goldman Sachs. As, hey, I got Goldman Sachs who's backing me for candidacy. If she was real, which she's not. But that's not who you want when they've been hammered by the SEC.gov 2022, 2023, 2024. And guess what an article also says about it? Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, JP Morgan, Chase, all these different people, all in this one article, were the main key components of the 2008 financial crisis. And that is who Kamala was bragging about. That's why you got to listen. That's why you got to remove your emotions and all that. That's why you got to stop listening to paper pushers and propaganda pushers and all these other pushers out there and find someone that knows. And I'm the only one that can retain it like I do. So I'm sorry. I know some good podcasters, and they know that as well. God put certain people in your life for a reason. I don't deliver it as suave and all this other stuff like some people do, but you don't need that. You need someone in your life that's going to be there all the time that can show you the facts, bring you the facts, and then you can tangibly go look at it on a .gov or .mil site, or you can hear President Trump and I go, that's what that means, that's what that means. Or when it's a quote-unquote debate, remove your emotions and go, well, that's stupid. Why would she say that if she was real? That's SEC.gov right here, right here, right here. Why? That's why you don't need anything else in your life. And it sucks to do that. It sucks to say it, but once again, God put me here for a reason. I can handle all the other stuff. I've already been through everything you can think of. And still standing, baby. Because we're on a home stretch now. But we should have a lot more people awake at this point than what it is. Especially the people who claim to support this man and the military. Should be a lot more patriots awake by what this represents right now at this appointed time. And it's not looking pretty for the future because, once again, in order to keep the swamp cleaned out, we got to have people who understand the functions, functionalities, and operations of laws and orders. And so far, that ain't happening. So far, that don't look good. And if the wrong people get back into key positions, and you, the people, don't know the laws, the orders, the functions, the operations of those, we'll be right back there quicker than Mike Tyson can screw up a spelling bee. That's why you got to remove your emotions. Listen. Listen to the terms, because that's that whole thing, that one little thing, and then the border bill. The border bill. You don't need a bill for the border. So just what happened just last week, South Dakota, or 2 weeks ago, South Dakota sends National Guard to California. That means they're federalized. The only person who can federalize the National Guard active duty is the President of the United States. The only one who's done that recently, Donald John Trump. There's that same law and order from 4 years ago in place with a new article saying South Dakota to California for drug trafficking. Nebraska and Arkansas went to Texas in February. And they showed President Trump there with the Adjutant General and the Governor. The first time the Adjutant General makes a TV appearance is with a former president? I don't think so. That was a chain of command. It was a rank structure. The Adjutant General reports to the Governor unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. And he's standing there with a quote-unquote former president. The first time he makes an appearance, the Adjutant General, he reports to the Governor unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. The only person who's federalized the National Guard to Title 10 is Donald John Trump. And there's the Adjutant General standing there with him. And they said Biden was in Brownsville, Texas the same day. And the Governor and Adjutant General is not with Biden in Brownsville, Texas. And I'm the crazy one for showing you military laws and military orders. That's how bad all these podcasters look that don't know this. That's how bad they look. Then they look even worse because they don't want to give credit where it's due. All right? Because they can't tote the weight. They can't tote the water. All right? The storm. So let's tie in the storm in North Carolina because some other stuff took place again that ties it in. Now, people get mad. They've already jumped ship. I've seen the numbers decline on some of my pages. That's fine. I'm not there for numbers. But it proves a point. People are still butthurt, and they don't want to hear facts. Here's what took place in North Carolina. It was going to happen anyway. But you got to look at Google. There are weather patterns for hurricanes. There's a way to strengthen a hurricane. Now, the last time that happened like that in that region was 1916. Subterranean warfare, ladies and gentlemen. When you see water like that in that kind of region, it's subterranean warfare. There were all kind of proclamations. And President Trump just not long ago said what? We got some rough days ahead of us. He gave you a proclamation. He's giving you proclamations. You got to listen to it. I've been through hurricanes. You can evacuate a hurricane. If you don't go anywhere, it's your choice. But for people to act like I'm insensitive, when I lived in regions my whole life of hurricanes, you need to shut the you-know-what up. All right? You need to go to the facts and remove your emotions. Because there's absolute solid proof that what's going on in North Carolina right now and what happened in the last couple weeks is all military operation that adds up to this. Subterranean warfare. But if you don't want to listen, or if you go, oh, I can't believe this guy is saying that, well, then that's your problem. And if you don't want to look at the facts, that's also your problem. If you don't want to apply the knowledge, then that's also your problem. But I'm not going to slack off from what I know due to my intelligence. I'm not going to apologize for my intelligence no more than I'm going to apologize for your lack of it. You want to know what's going on? Separate your emotions and let's go to the facts. When you go to the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide that I'm talking about, Special Operations, and go to page 11 and look at the diagram, it's word for word what you've been witnessing. It specifically says sabotage and terror to display the weakness in government. Now, what happened in the last week? What did FEMA do? $750 to a family? What is $750 going to cover? Come on, people. Think about it. Now, what ties it in to the military operation is this right here. FEMA was told to stand down. This was a recent article, mainstream article. FEMA told to stand down due to Title 10. Now listen to what that says. I paused for a reason. FEMA told to stand down by the Department of Defense due to Title 10. The only person who has federalized the National Guard to active duty recently by Title 10 is Donald John Trump. If that was a normal natural disaster, which would be an atrocity period, I've been through hurricanes my whole life. I've been through them. Katrina, Opal, and Aaron to be specific. I've been through hurricanes. Our state's called in other National Guard. That's Title 32. Governors with the state, with the National Guards, that's Title 32, the National Guard. Title 10 is your president. Title 10 is your Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is military law. Title 10 is what all of us veterans raise our right hand to. Title 10, Section 502. Title 10 is your Department of Defense and your president. FEMA told to stand down by Title 10. And then the 101st Airborne was just sent there October the 5th. What does it say? Title 10. What's 101st Airborne? And it says attaching to National Guard units. So that tells you right there this is not, first off, a Category 4 storm is strong. But they're saying that it's the worst storm since Katrina, and it's even worse than Katrina. These people didn't see Hurricane Katrina and what everybody saw. Hurricane Katrina annihilated NOLA and annihilated the water-wise, and annihilated Mississippi and Alabama, and those two states didn't get any credit for that whatsoever. It was all New Orleans. And they didn't use Title 10 during Katrina. Why wasn't Title 10 used then? If this was worse than Hurricane Katrina, then why was Title 32 the only thing used during Hurricane Katrina? Because that was not part of a military operation. Title 10 means that. Subterranean warfare. They've been doing busts with Disney for the last 3 years and ain't nobody been paying attention. Except for the small level patriots. Kudos to you, you know who you are, but this is the main, we're talking about average people. Y'all don't want to hear it. Y'all don't want to listen to that child trafficking exists the way it does. Y'all don't want to hear that human trafficking and sex trafficking until the wolf's at your door, and then, oh, this guy's talking about people dying, oh my God. That's when you want to listen. And you should have been listening way before now. So calling me insensitive and all the other stuff that people have done because I call the facts for what they are, that's where people go wrong. You can't handle the truth. Isn't there a certain movie out there where Tom Cruise says, I want to know the truth? And didn't someone, you can't handle the truth. Remember that line in the movie? Remember that? But it's different when it's in a movie. Oh, it's believable when it's in a movie. You can watch movies all day long about trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, all kinds of murder, all kinds of... But when it's a real life scenario, oh, it's insensitive. And oh my gosh, this guy, I can't believe this guy. I can't believe it. That's the way Americans are. All right, so to prove all of it even more, so there's a clown out there. There's a clown podcaster. There's a bunch of clown podcasters in the first place. But this is my closing argument that I'm going to call it a night. But there's a clown out there, as a lot of them are clowns anyway, once again. But there's a clown out there that they'll delete me from TikTok for showing straight up laws and orders in place that are visual for the whole world to see if you'll go look at them. But they'll let a clown get on there and stay on there for saying that the new Department of Defense Directive 5240.1 is Joe Biden weaponizing the military against the people. So if you've heard that out there, there's a I don't know if it's a podcaster or whatever, but I've seen one of them, and it circulated all over the internet that Joe Biden has weaponized the military against the people. And that burns me up more than anything because I received hundreds of messages, maybe thousands, I don't know. So if you follow me and you still fall for that, you're not listening to anything that I talk about. You're hearing, you may be watching, but you ain't listening and you ain't studying. You're not seeking to comprehend this dash. I could just hold this up here just like this. And if you fall for that propaganda, surface level bullcrap, you're doing him an injustice and the military an injustice, because that's what that dash represents, once again. It's military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs paired with executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and also international treaties. If you fell for that crap, some clown who takes one directive and can't even assess it correctly and don't even know what it has in it that is so epic, it's a tie-in that's something so epic in that one directive. There's a nugget in that directive that ties into something so epic that actually closes the curtains on this whole operation, we're in trouble. We're in trouble when we have patriots who claim to be awake and patriots who claim to be awake podcasters who take one directive and butcher it, and all they do is mislead Americans, as this one did. It's disappointing to look at. It's really disappointing to watch. We have too many people who want to be a voice right now, too many people who want to be a face right now, too many people say, oh, I just want to be a part. Well, you can't be a part when you're destroying the morale of this whole operation. You can't be a part when you're destroying what this whole thing is about. You need to stand down and shut the you-know-what up. You need to stand down. Oh my gosh. We have people on Instagram who can't even wrap around Title 10. I'm seeing comments over here. I'm trying to wrap my head around Title 10 in the storm. It's not difficult. We can't even get through the storm. Now we're coming up to this. We can't. Look at where we are, ladies and gentlemen. If I didn't have the support I have, I would have quit a long time ago, because it's so disappointing that people cannot. You don't read, you don't want to read, you don't want to understand, you don't want to seek to understand, you don't want to study, you just want it spoon, just a giant spoon. Open up like the birds in the nest. Here you go. Truly. When I say truly, I mean by all definitions. Where we are right now, it's an atrocity that so many Americans cannot simply grasp military laws, military orders, regulations, and how simple this stuff is. It goes back to, if it don't fit their beliefs, then it's false and you're wrong. So, I'm going to quit looking at comments on Instagram. Instagram is like going viral all over again. It's like the laggards of the laggards. So, this directive, let's just read some of it. Department of Defense Directive 5240.01, DoD intelligence and intelligence-related activities and defense intelligence component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. Now this clown, and I don't know their name, and I wouldn't say their name if I did, because then that would be publicity. It would be negative publicity, which would still be publicity for them. And they want to start a war, and that ain't what it's about. This ain't no argumentative thing. You either know military laws and military orders, regulations and customs, and executive orders, what they mean and what they entail, national emergencies and what they mean and what they entail, and also proclamations, what they mean and what they entail, or you don't. And if you don't, then there's no reason why you should be on a podcast whatsoever, period. And then all these other podcasters I'm talking about that just spread surface level stuff, and it's so hard but like the helicopter that was trying to land in North Carolina, all the people were yelling, screaming, and cussing that the military wasn't involved. They don't even know what the military does on a daily basis, and the military has been under them the whole time in subterranean. Have no idea what the military does. Don't have a clue when the military is flying over them or not. Yelling, crying, screaming, the military is not involved. Then a helicopter buzzes over and they say, oh, they did that on purpose. They destroyed all of our area and our operation set up. Oh, they did that on purpose. Then that video went viral. That stuff that podcasters share is propaganda. Because what you need to know is right here in the laws and the orders. Now, you may not understand it completely, but it's because you don't know when this started. And if you know when this started and you put all the laws and orders in place in a chronological timeline and what draining the swamp means, and when President Trump says the enemy is within, he's not talking, he's just said this other day, it's within, it's not overseas. He's talking about it's within Congress, other entities that work with Congress, traffickers, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, child traffickers. That requires people. Evil people, but people. So when you read this DOD directive, this clown is saying, and all the ones that shared it, they're saying that Joe Biden is using the military as a weapon against the people. Or is going to. All right, now when you read this order, so it's a directive first off. If you go to Google right now and you type in DOD directives, plural, comma, .mil, I put it up on my pages today where I video screened it. You know how many directives there are? There are a ton of directives. So that's how you can know right out the gate. If you don't know, now you can know. That's how you can know now. There are a ton of directives. And this one person hanging on one directive means that they either heard it through a grapevine, or maybe they stumbled over it, or when they heard it through the grapevine, they went and read it in the way they perceive it, not the bigger picture and how the military functions, military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, and federal, executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, federal legislation. A lot of these clowns are reading it based off of what they read and the way they want it to fit into their narrative. And that's what gets you all Elvis 1956. That's what gets you all shook up. It's because you don't know any different either. And then you go gravitate towards it because their podcasts are about, 20 minutes, 30 minutes long. Mine are not. Mine are 1, 2, 3, 4 hours long because I'm not Hansel and Gretel in you, and I'm showing you this bigger framework. But then what ends up happening is people don't take that big framework and go study that because you're still looking for a what? Spoon-fed answer. You just want a 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute assessment, and it don't work like that. This does not work like that. But if you would eliminate all this propaganda and all these pushers and all this drama and all this surface stuff, if you would eliminate all of that time and just seek to study that, then this time wouldn't be as long as drawn out as you think, because that would be the only thing in your life and it would become your foundation, and then you would give this man credit and this operation credit, this man and all the generals and all the world leaders of the capitulation tour. This ain't just a U.S. thing. That capitulation tour and all those nations that capitulated to us, they're all a part of that. So you would eliminate all this negative drama and surface level bullcrap, then you have all the time in the world you need to study what matters. And then when you finally put the pieces of the puzzle together and you catch up to where we are, yes, there are going to be some tragedies because it is a war, but it's a different kind of war. It's not the kind of war you've heard of your whole life. Yes, there were going to be some bumps. Yes, there were going to be some bruises. Yes, there were going to be turbulence. Yes, but welcome to life. Where have you not had that in your life? You always have. We always have. There are things that sucks about life. There is, but it's part of it. And we'll find out on the other side. I have friends who died young. Why? I'll find out later. Did it not hurt? Yes, it hurt like heck. But you keep moving forward. We're all a part of this together in another manner. But to sit and hang up and worry, oh, with the storm, why would they do this? And what? All I know is Title 10 is not your National Guard. That's your Department of Defense. If that was a normal storm, it would be Title 32 and your governors. But it's not. That's a presidential order, Title 10. Well, there's orders in place that make up this dash that are still invoked and still ongoing that are Title 10. And that's what the whole dash represents. So, whoever this person was, it don't matter. What matters is if you hear somebody out there saying that Joe Biden, first off, in any kind of present tense, turn your nose and turn your head and walk away. Because if they can't tell that this dude is not the same dude, and he ain't remotely close to being president by laws and orders, that's the first thing to turn your head away from. Kamala, same thing. Turn your nose. Boop. Walk away. Empower your mind with what matters. You cannot support this man and you cannot truly support the military if you don't seek to understand what that dash is. Because, once again, I set this up this way for a reason. This person who butchered that directive and caused this frenzy all over, because when you go to Google and you type in this directive, the first thing that pops up is some website that says, this DOD circled around the internet. When there's the number one thing that pops up on search engine optimization is not this directive itself, it's some website saying that this was circulated all over the internet. That means this person, whether they're dumb and ignorant and don't know what they did, or they're an infiltrator, they accomplished their mission because it created this frenzy and they butchered the ever-living hell out of this directive when there's something in this directive that actually validates this, and it also brings the curtains down on a massive, massive operation. So let's read this directive once again. It says, this issuance applies to OSD, the military departments, the office of the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff and the Joint Chief of Staff, the combatant commands, there's all your generals right there, the Office of Inspector General, the Department of Defense, the defense agencies, the Department of Defense field activities, and all other organizational entities within the Department of Defense. Now, I'm not going to read letter B because it's long, but letter C, right out the gate, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Right in the first A, B, C, in the letter C, is the biggest, most beautiful thing you could read in your life. This issuance implements paragraph 2.6 from Executive Order 12333 as amended. Then letter D talks about Title 10 and Title 50. Title 10 is your president. Title 50 is your Secretary of Defense. Executive Order 13912, he federalized 1 million reserve components active duty. Title 10. With Executive Order 13919, he directed the Secretary of Defense equal authority. Title 50. Now, watch this. I hope that whoever out there knows this podcaster and they can shove it so far up his you-know-what that he'll be able to see way past his colon. He'll be able to look out his own throat, which is impossible, so somehow they have to make a tracheotomy where he can shove his head out and see again from his head up his rear end, up his throat. This is so, I'm telling you, boy, this fires me up. This is awesome. So Executive Order 12333 was issued by Ronald Reagan. And it specifically talks about United States intelligence activities, where it lists the three-letter agencies. All right, let me pull up this executive order. I have it right here somewhere. Here it is. It's 16 pages long. All right. Now, Executive Order 12333 by Reagan pairs with Executive Order 11905 by Gerald Ford. And that Executive Order 1105, I have it here as well. Let me find that and read it first. Here it is. Specifically says this. It forbids electronic surveillance to intercept a communication. You have to go read. Unconsented physical searches within the United States or unconsented physical searches directed against the United States persons abroad, except lawful searches under procedures approved by the Attorney General. They cannot open mail or examination of envelopes of mail in United States postal channels except in accordance with applicable statutes and regulations. Examination of federal tax returns or tax informations except in accordance with applicable statutes and regulations. Infiltration of undisclosed participation within the United States in any organization for the purpose of reporting or influencing its activities or members, collection of information, however acquired, consenting to domestic activities of the United States. I mean, it lists over and over. Now, what did President Trump, I've put this in post recently, and apparently people don't read, but President Trump, who does he say spied on his campaign? Way back in 2017, who did he say spied on his campaign? You remember Russia? Remember Russia collusion? Remember the impeachment of the Ukrainian phone call? Oh, wow. Are we exonerating past presidents as well? Pretty sure that they impeached Richard Nixon for a perfectly good phone call. See the Congress? See how dirty Congress was? See how dirty these swamp people were? Who has a court case right now against President Trump about his federal tax returns? What does this executive order say? 11905 and 12333. You can't do what? You can't make a There's no statute or regulation for a president to show the federal tax returns. Who raided Mar-a-Lago? Who was that again? Who raided Mar-a-Lago? FBI. And in this executive order 12333, it lists all your three-letter agencies and then what they're not supposed to do and what they are supposed to do. And this directive that this clown butchered and got all over the internet for whatever reasons, for whatever kind of motives and ulterior motives that this person had, who butchered the you-know-what out of it. So guess what's in the Law of War Manual? that was reissued June the 12th, 2015, President Trump rolls down the escalator 4 days later to announce his candidacy for this massive, biblical, monumental, historical operation. Guess what's in the Law of War Manual? Executive Order 12333. Capitulation tour is in Chapter 12. President Trump said last year that I gave Angela Merkel the white flag of surrender. And he said it recently. He said it on Piers Morgan and a few others. The white flag of truce is what it actually is. Guess what that's in? Chapter 12 of the Law of War Manual. And here's this Executive Order 12333 that outlines what the three-letter agencies are to do and what they're not supposed to do over in the Law of War Manual. And here it is tied into this directive. Now, watch this. There was an article put out by West Point. It's called the... Let me find it here. I had everything in a row. It is actually called... let's see where it's at. I had everything in a row, and now it's not wanting to pull up. Let's see. Where are you at? Here it is. It's called the Law, War, and Assassinations. Articles of War, which were your first military law way back in June 13th, 1775, was your first set of military laws, which became the Uniform Code of Military Justice in 1950, which is still military laws. All right. Well, this article was put out October the 15th, 2021 at West Point, which is the Army school, right? westpoint.edu. But guess what? It's on the front of it, Liber. So the Liber Code of 1863, which is what? Found in the Law of War Manual. Liber Code of 1863. Now, what did Kamala just say in her quote-unquote debate that she had whom? The 200 Bush aides, Romney and McCain, and she has what? An endorsement by whom? Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, who President Trump says, I got her out of there, which he did. And Dick Cheney and all those people are endorsing Kamala. This is all on purpose. They're showing you the swamp and all these hypocrites. Now watch this. This is a liber.westpoint.edu. I'll put it up again on my pages. Now watch this. It talks about assassinations and the law of war. Now watch this. In his memo, published in the Army Lawyer, became a classic in the field in part because of its timing. In just over a year, the United States would be at war with Iraq, a conflict during which the issue of assassination occupied center stage. Once the war began in 1991, the United States launched over 250 missions against sites where Saddam Hussein was believed to be hiding. Yet, listen to that key language, yet when Air Force Chief of Staff General Mike Dugan had suggested in September 1990 that because Saddam is a one-man show in Iraq, he ought to be at the focus of our efforts, Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney promptly fired him. Ooh, boy, what a massive can of worms this Executive Order 12333 opens up. Because listen, that was in September. No, it was September 1990. Now do your math. 1 year after that, September the 11th, 1991, guess who stood on world TV and said we need a new world order? George Bush Sr. Ten years to the date, September the 11th, 1991, September the 11th, 2001, what happened? Well, guess what happened the day before, September the 10th, 2001? Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense, stood on World TV and said there's $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon. What happened the next day? And here's a general who said we should focus our efforts on Saddam because he's a one-man show. And Dick Cheney, who Kamala just bragged about having an endorsement from, fired this general. If Saddam was this dictator that everybody said he was back then why did they let him live from 1991 to 2006? Look what took place in the world from 1991 to 2006. Now, it gets better. Oh, it gets way better. This clown and this directive, thank you, clown. Thank you for letting the bull show up. Because when you mess with the bull, you get the freaking horns. Thank you, clown. Thank you, clowns. You're butchering military laws and military orders and military regulations. You're butchering the military way of life. And you're also claiming to be a patriot, and you know nothing about military and that dash, the man that you claim to support. So check this out, ladies and gentlemen. There it is in that directive in letter C, Executive Order 12333, which is Ronald Reagan, which is about intelligence activities, but it also mentions what in there? Assassinations. Now watch this. A couple of weeks ago, I discovered this. You don't see any podcasters, no podcasters talking about it that claim to be patriots. Why? Because their motives are not correct, their heart's not in the right place, and they also don't want to give credit where it's due because they didn't know any of this was going on in the first place because they don't know what the heck's going on except for regurgitation. A lot of regurgitators out there. This is the very thing that brings the curtain to a close or opens a massive can of worms, however you want to look at it. This very Executive Order 12333 ties in with something very key and very important. I was Googling 2 weeks ago, 2 a.m., couldn't sleep. It was on page 5 of Google. Those of you that knows what SEO means, search engine optimization means, if it's on page 5, it's not highly searchable. It's on page 5. It don't even have a title. Clicked on it. Here you go. Now we're going to read it. I'm going to pull it up. This is a Supreme Court number 23-939. In the Supreme Court of the United States, Donald J. Trump, petitioner versus United States respondent. Brief for 3 former senior military officers, that means generals, ladies and gentlemen, and executive branch officials as amici curiae supporting petitioner. Guess when it was filed, ladies and gentlemen? March the 19th, 2024. The argument on page 4 and page 7. These are your 2 key topics. There's 4 key components, though, so we'll read all 4. But there's 2 that are just massive. 1. The President's broad power as Commander-in-Chief does not include the authority to order the military to commit murder. 2. Military law and an executive order forbid murder and assassination. Under that, number 2, it has 2 bullet points, A and B. A is this: murder is a crime under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Letter B, an executive order bars assassination. Ooh. Number 3, military officers are not required to carry out unlawful orders. And number 4, the military will not carry out an order to commit murder. Now watch what this does. This is awesome. The very first paragraph Introduction and interest of amici curiae. Question. Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Close the parentheses. Quotations. That question was posed by a member of the panel at oral argument in the court below. Amici curiae who have served as military combat generals and senior officials at the Pentagon, check this out, listen again, combat generals and senior officials at the Pentagon and have held other senior executive branch positions, so your president, vice president, commander, so your cabinet, all that, commander-in-chief, everything, executive branch positions, submit that the answer to the panel member's question is a resounding no. Wow. And guess where the Navy SEAL Team 6, guess where their last big participation was? The killing of Osama bin Laden. Who was the president? Who was a part of that whole deal? Was that Hillary? Biden as a VP? And all kinds of people? Guess who else was murdered in 2011? Remember what Hillary was doing under oath? Remember, what does it matter anyway? They're gone! Remember that? Benghazi? Remember Libya? Remember Gaddafi, who wanted to bring back a gold standard? Ooh, does this open a massive can of worms? And here's this DOD directive with Executive Order 12333. That is Ronald Reagan's that lists all these three-letter agencies, what they can and can't do. That pairs with Executive Order 11905 by Gerald Ford, who also had an attempt of assassination on his life. Then, oh, it gets better. Oh, boy, does it get better. Oh, don't stop with this court case, because look at the date of that court case. This was put up by President Donald John Trump on March 19, 2024. That was 4 months before what? March, April, May, June, July the 13th. 4 months. What was July the 13th? Remember all those people who got mad at me and left my page? Remember all you good patriots? Remember all the people, the comments? Remember? How dare you, Derek Jonhson? Oh, Derek, rattle trap you. How dare you? Remember that? Remember that, ladies and gentlemen? Remember? And they already flooded my page saying that the President Trump I took a picture with December the 2nd, 2022 was not the real President Trump. So they already acknowledged that President Trump has a double. So there's no way that was a real assassination. Because why the heck would you put the real person, why would you put the real person at the rallies and the body double at the golf course, get to play golf all day and get to eat food all day and ride around? They already proved that. And then you do what? Let's go back over here to the what? Unconventional warfare, pocket guide, special operation. Look at the bottom of that paragraph, that diagram. Assassination, comma, forming favorable public opinion, parentheses, advocating national cause, comma, creation of distrust of established institutions. Well, if we're doing a little checkpoint here, did people get mad and pissed that it looked like President Trump was shot at? Checkmate. Yes. Did it form a national cause? Advocating? Means we're going to make this happen? Checkmate. Yes, it did. And then it says creation of distrust of established institutions. Special operation. Clandestine operation. It says creation of distrust. Did people get pissed at the Secret Service? Checkmate, yes. Did people get pissed at the FBI? Checkmate, guess what's in Executive Order 12333? What the three-letter agencies are supposed to do in the first place. So when you look at it, you'll see that this is a special operation because most Americans are sleepy. The podcasters who claim to be President Trump supporters, the ones who are very supposed to be toting the water, the ones who are supposed to absolutely know what that means, are butchering the ever-living hell out of it with one little directive that has Executive Order 12333 attached to it. They can't even tote the weight of one little single directive, much less the whole bigger picture of this. And here is President Trump putting in on March 19, 2024, a Supreme Court case 4 months before the quote-unquote attempt on his life and 6 months before the second attempt on his life. I mean, if you're going to be cocky and smart aleck and all the other stuff, then you might as well be the one that says, you might want to know what's going on. And then, oh, it gets better. It's like a 3 a.m. infomercial, right? With the blue shirt. But wait, it gets better. What did it say in the beginning of that court case? It said three generals, 3 senior military. Guess who one of them is? Uh-oh. Guess what, clown? Guess what, clown who butchered you know what out of the directive, a Department of Defense directive? You can't even get one directive correct. And guess what general is attached in this Supreme Court case, March 19, 2024. General Keith Kellogg. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o. You remember early in this video when I listed the state.gov and then the other .gov sites, defense.gov? Remember that little national security strategy from 2017? Guess who the author of that was? Keith Kellogg. And it's the last one on the defense.gov. And guess who was just with President Trump a month or so back over in North Carolina? And President Trump said, I'd like to acknowledge someone who's been with me before. Keith Kellogg. And guess who just wrote a new national security strategy that the mainstream media said, just in case President Trump gets the presidency, he can get a head start. Keith Kellogg. President Trump has a new shirt out on his website that I purchased because it's got the 45-47 and it's also a way you can donate. Guess what it says right here? America First. Guess where he's made speeches? The America First Foundation. Guess who's a part of that? Keith Kellogg. And all this is just a coincidence? Man didn't live 78 years. Forget the difference in a dash, a comma, and an and. And if it makes me look like a pompous ass, then fine. Because I didn't do this to be a podcaster. God gave me a place to deliver to you, but I'm not a podcaster. This is my background. This is my professional background. I have my Army retired ball cap over here. I have a Colonel memorial bracelet here. I have the blue, the black and the blue police. Someone special sent this soldier here, belonged to their mother. I had my mother and I back here in photos in my uniform. I have my company, 1776 Nation. I have my President Trump, my Mar-a-Lago valet parking tickets, and the food menu from where I've been to Mar-a-Lago this time 9 times this year. I have my other 2 trophy buckles back here. My first CD I ever recorded. I have a knife up here that has been passed down in my family. An old timer. So if I look like a pompous ass, you know how these football players do when they make one play today? Well, I'll just be that. Because my heart and my motives are in the right place. And I'm just serving beyond my service. I'm holding an oath. And long before I went viral, one of my sergeants was like, dude, you're an awesome person. You love people. You're personable. And you have a platform. This was before I had this. I was just a country music singer. He said, you know what he said? He said, honor our brothers and sisters. Keep their legacy going. The ones that we've lost in the past. Keep their legacy going. These people who don't know that, they ain't carrying that. They don't have that. Now, you don't have to be a veteran to know what's going on. No. And you don't have to be a veteran to deliver what's going on. No. But when you butcher it, when you twist it, when you have no clue what it means, when all you're doing is misleading innocent Americans and you're messing with their emotions and you're messing with their psyche, and when you're messing with that, and you especially if you really didn't know what you were doing and you still did that, you need to stand down. That's atrocious. And that ain't how we prosper in America. This whole operation was to drain the swamp and drain people with low IQ, as President Trump says. He said these people are stupid people. He uses the terminology. I know a lot of people don't like the word stupid, but there are some stupid people in this nation. Their actions are stupid. I don't think they're all stupid as far as like their IQ. They just choose to act stupid. You don't need anything else in your life but that dash. And that dash are all the military laws and orders and federal that's been put into place. That's why I have a #1 bestseller once again. That's all that is a chronological order. Now, in the very beginning, I put the Declaration of Independence in here. I put the Articles of Confederation in here before the Constitution. Then the Constitution, I put what national emergencies are, what executive orders are, the 3 branches of government, what they entail, and how they operate and function, because people need to know that first. Now, I put uniforms of the military in here, how to identify. Now, they're going to change over time. I saw the Army's putting out a new PT uniform, so it's going to change. So that book right there already be out of style as far as the Army goes in just a little while. However, doesn't matter. It's what was at the time and what they presented to you. I do have part 2 coming. It's going to be a lot more detailed. We're going to have a lot more veterans in it. A lot of other veterans have been a part of this. But anybody who messes with your emotions and they rock you from, that's your foundation, or it should be. If it rocks you from that, but what shows people are rocked are when the video continues to go viral. Whoever that person was, if their video went viral, that means that people are not doing their job to get them to someone like me who don't have a subscription, who you can share all my stuff. They don't have to pay for a subscription. When people are still going viral with a propaganda or some surface level, that means that those people are not being fed what they're supposed to be fed. And it's only doing this man and the military an injustice, because the dash is the military. Military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, traditions, visuals of those orders being carried out right now, and then like that. That was an ultimate, that's a mic drop moment. When you tie all those in, that one directive that's being butchered out there. It's got Executive Order 12333, and that's a very key order that is in this SupremeCourt.gov document. In that SupremeCourt.gov document, Executive Order 12333. It ties it all in. So anyway, I'm glad that we didn't have any more internet problems. I can't believe I went three hours, which is crazy. I was only going to do 2, but it ended up being 3 hours. But it's just so important where we are, October the 20th, 2024. Where we are right now, we shouldn't be here if people were pulling their weight the way they're supposed to be pulling it. We shouldn't. And when people say, how do I get involved? Well, you should already be involved. But I mean, if we're moving into the new renaissance, as President Trump calls it, the new birth, looking like this, I mean, laws and orders don't go away. So we still need people to understand what a national emergency is, what an executive order is, and what a proclamation is, and how the legislative branch works, how the executive branch works, how the judicial branch works. I mean, it. And people can say, well, why do you care so much? Oh, because the way we've looked the last 41, well, all my life, the way we've looked, 41 years. And you that are older, I mean, no, it's going to happen. President Trump's eliminating taxes and all these other things. That's still going to happen. But you got to appreciate what's going on. Don't just appreciate it in your pocketbook. Appreciate it by the legislative portion. And then identify when someone is cheating or when they're dishonest or when they're unethical or immoral. Like accountability, responsibility. We got to put all that back into place. But you won't know what accountability looks like if you don't know the procedures and the policies and the laws and orders. You won't know what's to help hold someone accountable or not if you don't know those entities and the functionalities and operations of that. That's why it's important. And where we are, once again, man, it don't look good. I mean, it does not look good at all. They really believe that a lot more people will be awake than what's awake right now. And like I said, the reason why I get so frustrated for you, this is me for you. Because all of you that follow me, we're all in the same boat. We're cohesive. But your friends and family that are still falling for this, they're the mass majority. It's not us. Boy, it don't look good at all. It don't look good at all. And once again, a lot of patriots claim to support this man, and they have no clue what that means on the side of his ball cap. And then they claim to support the military, and they don't realize that is the military. Oh well. So the best place to find all of my stuff is you'll see it posted in the comment box. It'll be my link tree, and that's the girl that does all my social media, Felicia. Shout out. All right. She'll put the link tree in the bottom, and she'll pin it to the comment in the comments of Facebook. So it's Linktree, LINKTR dot, the period goes between the R and the E. LINKTR period EE backslash 1776 Nation. No spaces, no underscores in between that, nothing. Just 1776 Nation. On Instagram, you hear me, I'll put it in the comment box, but if you'll listen, this Linktree, LINKTR period EE backslash 1776 Nation. No underscores, no periods, no nothing. 1776 Nation. That'll pull up all my pages. Now, TikTok ain't going to work because the fools deleted me again because they can't handle that one of my videos I get on TikTok, and one day I'll have 10,000 followers, and then I'll have 100,000 views on one video. They can't handle it. But you know, I keep trolling them, but that's the only link that won't work. You'll find that. The other thing I'm proud of is my box set CD, which is cool. That's the only way you can support me is music and merch. So book, CD, and merchandise, which a lot of people don't know that I was a country music singer before. I've had 2 Billboard hits. Country music also needs a massive clean out as well, which country music fans are 100 times worse than Patriot people because they don't want to listen because they think music is all good and gravy and they think it's all sunshine and roses in the music industry, and it's 100 times worse with the music industry people. They're atrocious. All right, these are 31 songs on this. I wrote 25 of them. The 6 I did that are on here are from my debut EP, which had a hit producer on it, and I had to do it because that's the only way that I could get a hit producer attached to me. But my second Billboard hit didn't have any kind of anything. It's just me and a couple buddies, and yeah, we screwed over the country music industry if people listen, but most people won't. They don't want to listen. Go figure. But cool CD. Very proud of it, especially all the ones I've written on here. And I got a new CD coming out after this, my new one. We didn't have any of those songs ready, so it'll come out after that. But you know, so that's on my website, rattletrap1776.com. So if you want these books, I say these, I got 2 #1 bestsellers right now. So I got the country music, Royal Flush of Country Music, shows how I beat Billboard without a major record label. Every singer-songwriter out there does not need a major record label to go to Billboard, which is the chart that the major record labels use. So if you know all these people on Instagram that you see all over your Instagram, that's what you should do is say, you don't need a major label, and you don't even need to move to Nashville. You're wasting your time because they're a bunch of dirty, crooked people. And this one. If you want these signed, you go to rattletrap1776.com. RATTLETRAP1776.com. I sign everything. If you're international, the only way to get them is through Amazon because the program we use ain't too friendly for international. And you'd pay a whole lot more for shipping, which is dumb. All right, so Amazon's able to do it, unfortunately, but they are. And if you're a Prime member and you want it within a half day or whatever they do with that, you'll get it quicker. If you want it on Kindle, Amazon. So you got options. All right. No, I don't sign those because I don't know where you're located, and then Amazon don't work that way. But I had people in South Dakota this past week that got it off of Amazon. I still signed it because I was in their region and they came out to see me speak. But you know, where we are right now, I'm probably not going to be doing any more speaking events between here and November. So we're on the home stretch. Yes, I'll be doing podcasts and things of that nature. But you don't need to panic. There's nothing to be scared of. You got to quit listening to people who don't know about that. That's the ones that scaring you. There's nothing to be scared of. This is all in operation. That means alpha and omega. And I'm not being sacrilegious. But alpha, middle, omega. The beginning and the end. He knew about it. He knew what it's going to look like. He took it on. But you got to quit panicking. Quit following the wrong people. So, all right. We'll see y'all soon. You know where my official pages are? If I start a new page, you'll know about it. It'll be on my link tree. So a lot of people, there's a Rumble account. There's a Rumble account with 41,000 followers. They're making about $3,000 a month by copying my videos and people going there. That's the one that pisses me off the most. It pisses me off because people don't listen. And these people, you got to hit them with a lawsuit. So that requires money. People think I'm rich and I'm not. Nowhere remotely close to it. So Pay attention to details. Quit following clowns and quit following fake pages. All right? Go to my link tree and find my official accounts. My official Rumble especially is at Rattletrap1776. No spaces, no underscores. R-A-T-T-L-E. Watch the fonts. They'll put an extra T on some of these fonts and it blends right in. You got to pay attention to details. A lot of y'all are making stupid fools rich. And they're playing on your emotions while they do it. Now, I might rile you up every now and then. You might not like some of the stuff I say, but everything I say, it's already been put out. And it's been put out by the man. So shoot the messenger all you want. But that's why we look the way we look. Because people don't want to listen to the man. The messengers get shot. And then by the time the truth gets out, you done shot up all the messengers. And then what? Oh my gosh. Well, if you remove your emotions the whole time and get straight to the facts. But if you didn't know about the dash, and that's the first time you've seen this ball cap, or the first time you've seen it on President Trump, then you get a hall pass, briefly. Now you got to do what? Go look at all the videos that I put out. But don't panic. Don't get scared. Cowboy up. Be a bull. Be a lion. If you're a Christian especially, what does the Bible tell you? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thine art with me. If God is with you in death, there ain't nothing in between death that he's not with you. So quit being worrisome. Quit being fearful, because the Bible it teaches all against that. Start acting like a warrior. Start acting like a lion. Start acting like a bull. Act like a champ. You want to be a champ? Act like one. Fight like one. Talk like one and walk like one. Woo! We'll see y'all soon.